Chapter 800. When was that? Shui Lu asked curiously. Why haven't I heard you mention such an important matter before? Jian Fengqi paused for a moment. Because I wasn't too sure at that time. Speaking of which, this happened back in country Yaochen. At that time, I accidentally saw a person's figure and vaguely felt that it was very similar. However, I didn't see him again after that, so I put this matter aside. He also wanted to see that person again to confirm that person's identity. However, no matter how hard he looked, there was no trace of that person. It had been quite a long time. If Shui Lu hadn't suddenly mentioned it, he really wouldn't have remembered. You said you saw that person in Xiaohou residence? Yes. That day, I originally planned to go to Xiaohou residence to inquire about the news. However, after meeting that person, I felt that it was a little strange, so I didn't make a move for the time being. Later, I found out that he was indeed secretly watching Xiaohou residence. However, his movements were extremely concealed, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to discover him at all. If it wasn't for the fact that she felt that person was inexplicably familiar, she wouldn't have noticed that person. Jian Fengqi waved the bone fan in one hand and narrowed his eyes. Xiaohou Rong is the grand tutor, and there are many guards inside and outside Xiaohou residence. Outsiders definitely wouldn't watch them for no reason. Since he did this, there must be a purpose. If it's not that person, then we have to investigate carefully to see who else is planning to make a move on Xiaohou residence. However, if it's really him, then we have to investigate even more carefully. We don't even know when he came back. As Jian Fengqi spoke, he put away the bone fan and rested his chin on it. However, it seems that Jiang Yuqing has been really busy during this period of time. He actually didn't notice that something was wrong at all? Shui Lu chuckled. I heard that he went to Dahuang Swamp again and was injured. He's now recuperating in Jiang residence. I really don't know who did it. If I can meet him, I have to thank him properly. I heard from my father that that person is extremely powerful. Not to mention Jiang Yuqing, even the few of them are no match for him. Jian Fengqi's voice was much more serious. Shui Lu was a little surprised. Only then did she remember that Jian Shai also went with them, so he must know a lot of inside information. She widened her eyes in shock. It can't be? More powerful than those few people? What kind of person is that? In the entire Tianling dynasty, there are only a few of them. Jian Fengqi. My father and the others didn't see what he looked like. He was wearing a mask. But he seems to have only attacked Jiang Yuqing, and he's still rather polite to my father and the rest. Jiang Yuqing's injuries are quite serious this time, so he shouldn't be able to cause any trouble for the time being. Little Lu, find some time in the next 2 days to go to the Xiaohou estate and inquire about that person's background. Jian Fengqi stood up and patted his robe. As for me, it's been a while since I've been to the palace. Why don't I visit our honorable third princess? Jian Fengqi strutted into the palace and went straight to Huayang Palace. Unsurprisingly, he was stopped outside. Over the past few days, most of the people who asked to see Shangguan Wan returned without success. Only a few people were allowed to enter the main hall to see her. However, they didn't stay for long each time. The palace kept announcing to the public that Shangguan Wan was injured while helping His Majesty get medicine and needed to rest. Although everyone had many guesses, Huayang Hall was heavily guarded, so they couldn't know what was going on. They could only continue to wait. Jian Fengqi wasn't surprised by this result. Previously, his father had taken the initiative to ask for help, but was rejected by Shangguan Wan, let alone him. Jian Fengqi didn't pursue the matter. This young master is actually worried about the third princess. Since the third princess wants to rest, this young master won't disturb you any further. With that, he turned around, intending to leave. Chan Yi was a little surprised. Jian Fengqi's personality was actually very difficult to deal with. She thought that it would take a lot of effort to persuade him to leave, but she didn't expect him to leave so straightforwardly. However, just as he took half a step, Jian Fengqi turned around again, a careless and evil smile on his face. That's right, this young master suddenly remembered that this young master borrowed a few medical books from the Empress and didn't return them. Since I'm here today, I want to make a trip to Xiaoyu Hall and return them. Chan Yi's eyelids twitched. The Empress medical books? She's already dead. What's there to return? Moreover, it's been almost 2 years. No one would care about such a thing. She sized up Jian Fengqi suspiciously, feeling a little uneasy. However, Jian Fengqi had a smile on his face. He was no different from before. He didn't seem to be looking for trouble. Chan Yi pondered for a moment. Xiaoyu Hall was the Empress' resting place when she was alive. The third princess has always ordered people to watch over it carefully. No one is allowed to damage anything inside, and no outsiders are allowed to enter. This servant will help you ask for permission. Please wait a moment. Jian Fengqi nodded with a smile. Go on, go on. Chan Yi turned around and entered the room. Jian Fengqi raised his brows slightly and looked around the courtyard casually. It seemed like there were some changes after not coming here for a while. Although he didn't come here often, he had a photographic memory. He remembered every blade of grass and every tree here clearly. He walked to a tree and leaned against it. Suddenly, the tip of his nose twitched. A faint bitter and fishy smell was faintly discernible. He lowered his eyes and took a look. This smell seemed to be coming from underground. He took a closer look, and his pupils suddenly shrank. He's going to Xiaoyu Hall? Shangguan subconsciously frowned. Why did he go there all of a sudden? Shangguan Yu had been dead for so long. What's the big deal about returning a few medical books? However, Jian Fengqi wasn't easy to deal with. If she didn't agree to his request, who knew what trouble he would cause? In any case, he had always been barefooted and wasn't afraid of wearing shoes. He was very unbridled and arrogant. Shangguan didn't want to attract such a big trouble at this time. She waved her hand in annoyance. Since he wants to go, let him go. There are plenty of people in Xiaoyu Hall. If they discover anything strange about him, immediately report it. Shangguan rubbed her forehead. Actually, Jian Fengqi had a good relationship with her in the past. He had spoken up for her many times and helped her a lot. However, for some reason his attitude towards her had changed slightly after Shangguan Yu's death. Although it wasn't obvious on the surface, Shangguan could feel it. She couldn't understand it. Jian Fengqi and Shangguan Yu had been enemies in the past. They didn't like each other. Why did he suddenly become like this? Why was he going to Xiaoyu Hall now? Jian Fengqi gathered origin power in his palm. Just as he was about to reach out, he suddenly heard Chan Yi's vigilant voice behind him. Young Master Jian, what are you doing? Asked the user of the mobile phone. A better reading experience came from Love Network. Chapter 801. Jian Fengqi paused for a moment, then looked over as if nothing had happened. His expression was still as carefree and unrestrained as ever. Wasn't this young master waiting for you? His tone was lazy, and the last syllable had a hint of ambiguity to it. There seemed to be a glimmer of light flashing through her icy eyes. It was overflowing with light and color, making people feel as if they were about to drown in it. Chani's face inexplicably heated up. Even though she knew that Jian Fengqi was just teasing her, she still felt a ripple in her heart. All these years, Jian Fengqi's reputation as a womanizer wasn't just for show. According to what Shangguan Yu had said, he was very good at coaxing young ladies. Jian Fengqi had always taken this evaluation as a compliment. Many times, using this kind of trick could save him a lot of trouble. Unfortunately, that stupid Shangguan Yu didn't understand at all. However, Jian Fengqi was also glad that he hadn't actually made a move. Otherwise, he might not even be able to leave the palace today. After all, Chani was Shangguan personal maidservant for many years. Her mental fortitude was much stronger than that of ordinary women. She quickly adjusted herself and said, "Her Highness has agreed." Her Highness has already agreed. Sir Jian can go to Xiaoyu Hall now. Jian Fengqi nodded with a smile. Then I'll have to thank Her Highness and Miss Chani. After saying this, he walked away with relaxed steps. Chani glanced at where he had been standing and felt a little worried. However, when she thought about how everything had been done so smoothly and covertly, and how Jian Fengqi had only been standing there for a while, he probably wouldn't notice anything. Thus, She put the matter aside for the time being. For some reason, Her Highness's mood had been fluctuating between good and bad these past 2 days. She would decide whether to take the medicine masters had sent over based on her mood. However, what was surprising was that her body seemed to be getting better. Compared to the beginning, there was an obvious improvement. Chani didn't know the reason, but she didn't dare to ask. She only carefully served her. Based on the current situation, Her Highness should be able to recover very quickly. Jiang Yuqing was also recovering at an extraordinary speed. With Feng Shangyuan's help, his body was getting better day by day. The wound on his chest had already formed a scab, and it would be completely healed after a period of time. Even the wound on his lower abdomen was showing signs of healing. The burning pain did not appear again. This made Jiang Yuqing heave a huge sigh of relief. Jian Fengqi came to Zhaoyu Hall alone. Compared to before, this place was much more deserted, but there were still many palace servants here. Upon seeing Jian Fengqi, a palace servant quickly came to greet him. Greetings to young Master Jian. Obviously, they had already received the news. Jian Fengqi wasn't surprised and said honestly, "This young master is here today to return the Empress concubine's medical books." The palace servant hurriedly said, "Then this servant will take you there. This young master has been to this place many times. Do I need you to lead the way? This young master will go myself." Jian Fengqi interrupted the palace maid's words and walked straight in. He seemed to be walking slowly, but in fact he was very fast. He walked like the wind and soon arrived inside. Seeing this, the palace servant hurriedly chased after him and said, "Young Master Jian, you can't go to that room." Jian Fengqi stopped in his tracks. "But why is that?" That was the Empress concubine's residence when she was alive. The palace servant did not dare to say anything too unpleasant and only stuttered for a long time. Jiang Yuqing did not think much of it. Even if the Empress concubine is still alive, she may not be able to stop me. Why, do you want to try? Although he was smiling, there was a bit of coldness in his eyes. The palace servants around him looked at each other. This young master is just going to return a few books. If you are worried that it will be difficult to explain, you can just follow this young master in later. This servant does not dare. If the third princess found out, his life would be in danger. Jian Fengqi lightly snorted. In that case, when the door opens later, you can just watch from the outside. Won't that be fine? The palace servants hesitated for a long time. Thinking that this was indeed the only way to compromise, they could only agree. Jian Fengqi walked inside. It was obvious that no one had been here for a long time. Everything was covered in a layer of dust. Jian Fengqi sneered in his heart. Shangguan always bragged outside about how much she missed the Empress concubine and how much she valued the Empress concubine's things when she was alive. In the end, she even guarded the place where the Empress concubine lived when she was alive. Although the door was open, Jian Fengqi's back was facing the people outside at this time. He quickly scanned the room. The smile on his face gradually disappeared and his expression became serious. He walked to the desk, took out a few medical books, and placed them on the bookshelf behind. In fact, he did not make up the matter of returning the books. A few years ago, he did borrow a few books from Shangguanyu. After all, the public had the most rare books in the entire Tianling dynasty. Shangguanyu also liked to collect unique books. Jian Fengqi often came to her to ask for books to read. Sometimes he would even see her annotations in the books. However, he often forgot to return them. This caused Shangguanyu to often make trouble for him. However, this time he had forgotten for so long. No one urged him anymore. He put the books away one by one. In the end, he accidentally bumped his arm and a book next to him fell down. He bent down to pick up the book. Just as he was about to put it back, he saw that there was no title on the book's cover. The pages were slightly curled. It looked like it had been flipped through many times. He opened the book curiously. How many lines of words were written on the page? Jian Fengqi knew every word, but he did not understand what they meant when they were put together. However, this handwriting was indeed from Shangguanyu. When did she leave this behind? The mystic forest. Time passed slowly. In front of Chu Luiyue, A huge corpse was suspended in midair. After a long period of tempering, the bloodline power inside had almost been completely stimulated. The bloodline power that looked like blood vessels gradually became clear and finally condensed into a blood bead in the middle. Although this blood bead was only the size of a longan, it contained an extremely powerful aura. The skeleton's original jade-white color gradually became transparent. When the blood bead condensed, Chu Luiyue let out a long breath. Her clothes were already drenched in sweat, and her lips were a little pale. This was the great phoenix dragon skeleton. It consumed a lot of energy to refine the power inside, especially when Chu Luiyue was only a stage 5 warrior. If not for the boundless force stored in her energy center, she would not have been able to withstand it. When the blood bead condensed completely, Chu Luiyue did not rest. Instead, she immediately threw in a few herbs beside her. At the same time, with a thought, a guqin appeared beside her. On the body of the guqin, there was a faint purple gold color that shone brightly. Digression: tomorrow at 12 o'clock, mobile users can browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 802. The Purplish Gold Bodhi Leaf. It lay quietly on the zither, its body covered in a layer of translucent red light. At first glance, it looked like a crystal-clear amber. Chu Luiyue carefully took it down, then put the zither away. She carefully examined the purplish gold Bodhi leaf in her hand. Although it was now trapped in this seal, she could still vaguely feel a vigorous life force. The purplish gold leaf glowed brightly. Chu Luiyue looked at the legendary three-eyed eagle and nodded lightly. Whoosh! The legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its huge wings. The surrounding aura surged. In the next moment, its third eye suddenly opened. A ray of red light shot out from within. It instantly enveloped the purplish gold Bodhi leaf. Crack! A faint cracking sound could be heard. A crack suddenly appeared on the seal outside the purplish gold Bodhi leaf. Immediately, the seal shattered, transforming into countless rays of red light that scattered in all directions. The purplish gold Bodhi leaf was completely exposed. It trembled slightly, then turned around and headed in another direction. It wanted to run. Chu Luiyue waved her hand, and a flame flew out from the heavenly square cauldron. It quickly formed a barrier in front of the purplish gold Bodhi leaf. The purplish gold Bodhi leaf sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly stopped. Just as it was about to run in another direction, the legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its wings again. An earth-shattering shriek rang out. Screech! This cry reverberated throughout the entire space and did not dissipate for a long time. Reverence, admiration, longing. It sounded like a low chant from ancient times, with a heavy and ancient aura that shook one's soul. This was the summoning of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan to the sacred tree. The purplish gold Bodhi leaf seemed to have sensed something and stopped trying to escape. Instead, it stood in place in a daze. Chu Luiyue inexplicably felt that there was a subtle connection between the legendary three-eyed eagle and the purplish gold Bodhi leaf. Although she could not see it, she could still clearly feel it. It was a connection that had dissolved into their bloodline after tens of thousands of years of relying on each other. In the next moment, she saw Yi Qingling leap in front of the legendary three-eyed eagle. At this moment, the blood bead extracted from the great phoenix dragon skeleton had gradually merged with the other medicinal herbs. From the initial bright red color, it had turned into a rich reddish-black color. The legendary three-eyed eagle had been staring at the purple gold Bodhi leaf for a few years now. A moment later, the violet gold Bodhi leaf flew up slowly and stuck itself to its third eye. It was as if spring water had seeped into the frozen soil, dispelling all the chill. The purple gold Bodhi leaf instantly fused into the third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle. The crimson color in the eye quickly melted like a cracked ice surface. Then, a layer of faint purple gold color spread out from it. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat when that eye turned from scarlet to a purple gold color. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle had always been red in color, and it was filled with a fierce and cold aura. At this moment, the brutality and bloodiness inside had completely faded away. Instead, it was replaced by a shocking and incomparable nobility. Cold, noble, and disdainful. That was the unique pressure of a divine beast. Most importantly, it contained a trace of tenacious vitality, and it was glistening brilliantly. While Chu Luiwei was still in shock, the legendary three-eyed eagle moved and flew in front of the great phoenix dragon skeleton. It swallowed the black-red blood bead in one gulp. At the same time, one of the bones slowly flew up and fused into the huge black phantom. A moment later, flesh and blood began to grow on the sparkling and translucent bones. Chu Luiwei immediately urged the surrounding flames to surge over. It completely surrounded the illusory figure and began to burn wildly. With the help of the flames, the growth of the flesh and blood seemed to speed up a lot. Not long after, the position of the bones formed the shape of a wing. The great phoenix dragon and the legendary three-eyed eagle were not of the same race. Tracing back to its roots, the true ancestor of the legendary three-eyed eagle was actually the immemorial divine beast, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. This also caused the legendary three-eyed eagle to be unable to completely borrow the great phoenix dragon skeleton. It could only choose a suitable one for its own use. Therefore, it only used this piece of bone to make its wing bone. However, the bloodline power in these bones had been completely refined by Chu Luiwei. Therefore, to the legendary three-eyed eagle, although it only used one skeleton, it had already turned all the power into its own. Chu Luiwei sent the remaining skeleton back to the heavenly square cauldron. Then the other half of the skeleton flew out. Back in the Tianling God realm, Chu Luiwei had actually obtained an entire set of bones. Taizu said that back then, in order to avoid being discovered by the great phoenix dragon race, the skeleton was divided into two parts. In the heavenly square cauldron, they were combined into one, but with the suppression of the heavenly square cauldron, there was no need to worry about this. However, when he took them out, Chu Luiwei deliberately separated them. Seeing that half of the wing was rapidly forming, Chu Luiwei took a deep breath and began to refine the bloodline power of this half of the skeleton. This process was actually very long. However, according to the legendary three-eyed eagle, it also needed a certain amount of time to completely fuse its soul with this skeleton. Therefore, Chu Luiwei still had plenty of time. The process that had been carried out previously was repeated again. When the flames surrounded the half of the skeleton and burned it to temper it, Chu Luiwei took out the second set of herbs from the long yuan sword. At this time, he couldn't help but be thankful that Taizu had left behind so many things. Otherwise, it would have taken a lot of effort just to gather these precious herbs. While Chu Luiwei was focused on helping the legendary three-eyed eagle reconstruct its body, on the other side, the Rong Xiu had already finished repairing the crack in the pure gold armor. It was smooth and looked almost exactly the same as before. It didn't look like it had been damaged before at all. If anyone saw this scene now, they would definitely be shocked on the spot. This was because a yuan tool of the level of the pure gold armor couldn't be completely repaired. However, the Rong Xiu had completely repaired it. This method could be said to be superb. Even Taizu, who was an expert in refining yuan tools, might not be able to do this. However, the Rong Xiu lowered his eyes and looked at the pure gold armor. He didn't seem to be satisfied. It was indeed a top-grade yuan tool. Unfortunately, it met the 2 Tian baby. Although it was repaired today, Chu Luiwei might encounter some kind of danger in the future. The Rong Xiu pondered for a moment and looked up at Chu Luiwei. She was concentrating on tempering the great phoenix dragon skeleton. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and a faint golden color appeared on his fingertips. Then, he left a palm-sized pattern on the pure gold armor. That pattern flashed slightly and quickly disappeared. It was impossible to tell if it was the same or not. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 803. Xiling. The lanterns were lit, and the moon hung high in the sky. Chun Feng restaurant was bustling with activity. However, Shui Lu stayed in her room alone and ignored everything outside. Today was her usual rest day, so she didn't welcome guests. Besides, she had something to do at night. She planned to make a trip to Xiaohou residence. Originally, she discussed with Jian Fengqi to go tomorrow, but after thinking about it, she felt that it would be more discreet to take action at night. As Xiahou Rong had already returned to Xiling, he had been staying in the residence for the past few days. A few days ago, she thought that Xiahou Rong would definitely be wary since he had just returned. Today, they should have relaxed a little. As for that person's identity, it wouldn't be too late to confirm it when she had the chance. Shui Lu started to dress up. For safety reasons, she naturally had to change her appearance. She took out a thin human skin mask. Just as she was about to put it on, a familiar voice came from outside the door. "Where's Lu? Let her serve you." "Xiahou Tingan. Why is he here now?" And it sounded like he was a little drunk. Hearing the sound of someone going up the stairs, Shui hurriedly kept her things. "Second young master Xiahou, you came at the wrong time today. Miss Lu is resting today. Why don't you let another lady come?" Mrs. Zhang tried to persuade her in a gentle tone. "I only want her to accompany me today. I don't want anyone else." "Where is she? Ask her to come out." Perhaps it was because he was drunk, but Xiahou Tingan became more arrogant than usual and even dared to make a ruckus in Chunfeng restaurant. Mrs. Zhang smiled and calmly stood in front of him. She seemed to be in a difficult position. "Second young master, it's not your first time coming to Chunfeng restaurant, and you know the rules here. Miss Lu wants to rest, and even I can't persuade her to come out. Her temper has always been very stubborn. Even if she forces herself to come out, she'll definitely spoil your mood. Recently, we have a new lady here, and she's very good at playing the zither. Do you want me to bring her here?" However, Xiahou Chunin didn't listen and pushed her away. Bang! Nanny Zhang was pushed onto the railing, and her waist hurt from the impact. Xiahou Tingan chuckled in disdain and mocked her as he walked up. "Very good at playing the zither? What do you know? I've heard of the best zither in the world. Other people, how could they even be on the stage? Don't dirty my ears." Mrs. Zhang's expression changed slightly. She vaguely knew who he was talking about and suppressed the anger in her chest. She held her waist and followed him. "Second young master, this really won't do." Xiahou Tingan was very frustrated, and his face was filled with impatience. "What? This young master came to your little Spring Breeze house to have some fun. Do I need to look at your eyes? Listen to your orders?" He had heard enough at home. Scram! Just as he was about to make a move, a soft and sweet voice suddenly came from behind him. "Wait." Mrs. Zhang looked up and was taken aback. "Lua, why did you come out?" Shui Lu smiled gently. "I heard second young master Xiahou's voice from afar. Since second young master Xiahou wants to hear me, it's my honor. There's no reason for me to turn you away." As she spoke, she looked at Xiahou Tingan. "Second young master, please." Xiahou Tingan was then satisfied as he gave Auntie Zhang a warning look. "If you were half as sensible as Miss Lu, you'd be able to avoid a lot of trouble. Do you understand?" Auntie Zhang didn't react as she looked at Shui Lu in confusion and shock. Today was her usual day of rest. Not to mention a mere second young master of the Xiahou family, even if the emperor came, I wouldn't come out to welcome him. In the past, when Shui Lu first came, there were people who bullied her, and some even wanted to humiliate her. But those people all stopped in the end. In all kinds of ways. From then on, almost nobody dared to be so impudent in Xiling. Xiahou Tingan only dared to do this because he was drunk and muddle-headed. However, it wasn't that they couldn't handle it. They just didn't need Shui Lu to come out personally. But Shui Lu just smiled. "Auntie Zhang, please invite second young master to the room over there. I'll pack up and come over." Auntie Zhang was confused, but she could only do as she was told. Xiahou Tingan strutted into the room. If he was more clear-headed, he would notice that something was amiss. It was a pity that he couldn't tell anything at this point. Instead, he thought that his identity had stunned them, and he was secretly delighted. After a while, Shui Lu indeed carried the pipa over. She gave Auntie Zhang a look. "Auntie Zhang, second young master has a distinguished identity. Please serve him the best wine we have." Auntie Zhang didn't know what she was planning, but she still did as she was told. Very quickly, The servants sent the wine over. Xiahou Tingan slapped it open, and the refreshing wine fragrance wafted over. It was the top-grade green bamboo leaf. Only Xiahou Tingan and Shui Lu were left in the room. Shui Lu asked very gently. Second young master, what do you want to hear? Xiahou Tingan thought for a while. Just pick what you're best at. As he spoke, he started drinking again. Shui Lu's eyes sparkled, and she smiled in agreement. Then she gently strummed the pipa, and a melancholic sound could be heard. Xiahou Tingan's emotions were stirred, and he was very upset as he continuously downed a few cups of wine. Shui Lu stopped and knitted her brows as if she was worried. Second young master, you don't seem to be in a good mood. Is something troubling you? Xiahou Tingan's mind was a little giddy. When he heard this voice, he opened his mouth and said what was on his mind. It's all because of the Jiang residence. Bang! He heavily slammed the wine cup on the table, and his face flushed red with anger. Shui Lu's eyelashes fluttered, and her voice was as gentle as the wind. I'm just a weak girl and I don't know much about this. I just hope that second young master can be more at ease and stop worrying about this. As if he heard a joke, Xiahou Tingan sneered. I don't want to either, but that Jiang residence is too much. Who in Xiling City didn't know that Jiang Yuqing's biological sister, Jiang Yuji, was discussing marriage with Xiahou Tingan? The two families had a strong alliance, and this marriage was very beneficial to both parties. Especially Xiahou Tingan. Just based on this marriage, he had already won against the other young masters in the Xiahou residence. What else could he be unhappy about? Shui Lu only asked a few questions, but she managed to get a lot of information out of Xiahou Tingan. She then knew that because Jiang Yuqing was injured, the marriage between the Jiang residence and the Xiahou residence started to be delayed again. They even said that they wanted to wait until after the third princess and Jiang Yuqing's wedding. This made the Xiahou residence feel that the Jiang residence didn't care about this marriage at all. They had already given in time and time again so that they could settle this matter as soon as possible. However, the Jiang residence was insatiable. They actually still want the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill. What a joke! Xiahou Tingan stuck out his tongue, and his voice was a little muffled. Since they already gave this to us back then, how can they ask for it back? They want to give the pill back to Jiang Yuqing? Dream on. Shui Lu was shocked. The 9 clouds yuan recovery pill. That's the princess's item. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 804. The 9 clouds yuan recovery pill was a 9th grade pill left behind by Taizu, and it was extremely precious. Rumors had it that this pill had the effect of raising one's yuan meridian level, so it had always been carefully kept by the Tianling royal family. There hadn't been a 9th grade celestial physician in the Tianling dynasty for hundreds of years, so one could imagine how precious this 9th grade pill was. Back then, when the princess was of marriageable age, the emperor gave this 9 clouds yuan recovery pill as a gift to her. Everyone knew that the emperor had decided to pass the throne to the empress concubine. Ever since then, the princess had been in charge of keeping this 9 clouds yuan recovery pill. On one hand, she had the Tianjing yuan meridian and didn't need this item. On the other hand, this 9 clouds yuan recovery pill had a special meaning, and the Tianling royal family wouldn't let anyone use it. Instead, it would be passed down. But now, Xiahou Tingan actually said that the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill was in their residence. Shui Lu hurriedly looked down and hid the emotions in her eyes. Even if she was good at hiding her emotions, she almost couldn't control it at this moment. Even if Xiahou Chunan was completely drunk, she didn't dare to reveal any abnormalities. She took a deep breath in and paused for a moment before she finally suppressed the waves in her heart. At the same time, countless guesses surfaced in her mind. After the princess died, Jiang Yuqing and Shangguan Wan were in charge of everything. Everyone naturally thought that the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill was in Shangguan Wan's hands. As the princess's sudden death had a huge impact on everyone, everyone's attention was placed on the princess's death. Very few people cared about this 9 clouds yuan recovery pill. I didn't expect it to be in the Xiahou residence. Hearing what Xiahou Tingan said, this 9 clouds yuan recovery pill was originally given to them by Jiang Yuqing, but he wanted it back now. Both parties couldn't come to an agreement, so they had a conflict. Of course, Jiang Yuqing could have gotten this item. As for why he gave it to the Xiahou residents, only they knew. But this also confirmed what Shui Lu had always suspected and investigated. The Xiahou residents indeed couldn't escape from the princess's death. Now, for some reason, Jiang Yuqing wanted the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill back. Bang! Xiahou Tingan suddenly fell onto the table, and the wine on the table spilled all over the floor. He was still muttering something under his breath. Second young master? Second young master? Shui Lu shouted twice, but Xiahou Tingan didn't respond. The gentle smile on her face faded, and she quietly walked over. In her blurred state, she heard his intermittent words. It's me, it's my 99. Shui Lu pondered. Seeing Xiahou Tingan's angry and indignant look, it was most likely because he had always thought that the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill was his. But now, Jiang Yuqing wanted to go back. Of course, he wouldn't agree. Shui Lu's voice was even softer, and it carried an indescribable allure. Where is the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill? Xiahou Tingan's eyes were tightly shut, and his face was flushed red. He reeked of alcohol. Hearing this, his eyebrows twitched and he shook his finger. Here. Creak. The door was opened from the inside. Nanny Zhang, who was anxiously waiting outside, hurriedly looked over. Seeing that Shui Lu walked out safely with her pipa, she finally heaved a sigh of relief. She quickly walked forward and sized up Shui Lu. Then she looked over Shui Lu's shoulder. How is it? Are you okay? Shui Lu smiled. Second young master is drunk and has already fallen asleep. Don't let anyone come and disturb second young master. Nanny Zhang vaguely saw the corner of Xiahou Tingan's shirt. Hearing that there wasn't any movement inside, she felt more at ease. Why don't we send someone to send him back to the Xiahou residence? With his current state, people will definitely talk about him if we send him back. He might even cause trouble for us. If he wants to sleep here, let him sleep. This kind of thing was very normal for the young masters in Xiling City. As long as they didn't go overboard, their families wouldn't pursue the matter too much. Should we find someone to help him wash up and rest? Nanny Zhang lightly fanned herself. The smell of alcohol in the room was simply unbearable. We're still standing at the door. Who knows what it's like inside? It's really hard on Shui Lu. Call someone over. Shui Lu looked back and tucked her hair behind her ear as she chuckled. He's Xiahou Residence's second young master after all. His current state is too unbearable. We just have to serve him well today. Someone will naturally come to fetch him back tomorrow. Hearing her words, Nanny Zhang also felt that it made sense, so she nodded. Shui yawned and covered her mouth with her hand. Her pair of watery eyes were very moving and had a natural charm and gentleness. I'm tired today, so I'll go back first. The smell of alcohol on you is really strong. Shui Lu pouted her red lips lightly. I'll have to trouble Nanny Zhang for the rest. Then, she hugged her pipa and walked back to her room. Nanny Zhang glanced at her and felt strange. Shui Lu had always looked down on people like Xiahou Tingan, but she was exceptionally patient today. She even endured the fact that the room was already so dirty and messy. However, she didn't think too much about it as Shui Lu's temper had always been hard to predict. She endured the smell and closed the door before calling someone over to clean up. The next morning, Xiahou Tingan was woken up by a commotion. Vaguely, he seemed to have heard Jiang Yuji's voice. He sat up with much difficulty, but his head hurt so much that it felt like it was going to split open. At this point, the door was suddenly kicked open by someone. Xiahou Tingan, come out. A person barged in with a face full of anger. It was Jiang Yuji. Digression, 6 o'clock. I want to add 20 more. Can you hear me singing? Dreams flew out one by one. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 805. Nanny Zhang and the rest hurriedly followed over. Looking at the scene in front of them, they didn't know whether to stay or leave, so they anxiously said to Xiahou Tingan. Second young master, why you see, fourth Missy Jiang insisted on coming in. We couldn't stop her even if we wanted to. Xiahou Tingan rubbed his temples. His mind was still in a mess, and he didn't understand the situation in front of him. Yuji, why are you here? Jiang Yuji was so angry that her entire body trembled. Her originally pretty face was already a little distorted. She raised her hand and angrily pointed at Xiahou Tingan with a sharp voice. You still have the cheek to ask me why I'm here? Why don't you see what good things you've done? Xiahou Tingan, do you still have any shame? With Jiang Yuji's commotion, Xiahou Tingan instantly felt very embarrassed. Normally, he would let her do whatever she wanted in private. When she threw a tantrum, he would also tolerate it. However, she spoke to him in such a tone in public. She didn't leave him any face at all. Xiahou Tingan had a hangover and was originally feeling uncomfortable. This made him even more frustrated, and his face turned cold. What are you doing? Don't you see where this is? Is this a place you can come to? No matter what, Jiang Yuji is the Jiang family's fourth Missy. With such a status, she came to Chun Feng restaurant and acted so arrogantly. She doesn't even mind that it's embarrassing. I can't come? But am I delaying your happiness? Jiang Yuji seemed to have completely lost her rationality as she sharply argued with him. Her eyes were red, and she looked furious. She gritted her teeth as she spoke every word. Xiahou Tingan closed his eyes and looked at the door. In just a short while, quite a few people had already surrounded the door, and they were all watching this joke. He forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and said, Yuji, calm down. Yuji, calm down first, let's close the door and have a good talk. He was begging nicely, but Jiang Yuji sneered as if she had heard a joke. Close the door? Why don't I close the door and let you continue being a playboy? Xiahou Tingan knitted his brows. What nonsense are you spouting? Before he could finish his sentence, a soft hand placed on his shoulder. A weak girl's voice came from behind him. Second young master. Xiahou Tingan's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately turned around. A girl who looked to be about 15 or 16 years old was leaning against the wall while hugging a blanket. She clutched the blanket tightly with one hand to cover her body, while her other hand carefully rested on his shoulder. Her fair and tender arms were like jade lotus roots, and there were a few vague red marks on her slender collarbone. It went without saying what it was. Xiahou Tingan was stunned. He almost jumped out of bed. Who are you? The woman's hair was disheveled, but one could still tell that she was extremely beautiful. Her skin was snow white, and her lips were cherry red. Especially her pair of round eyes, with long eyelashes fluttering slightly. She was truly a pitiful sight. Especially since there were still traces of tears at the corners of her eyes, it made people feel even more reluctant to say a harsh word to her. Hearing this, her eyes widened slightly, as if she couldn't believe it. Her body trembled slightly, and 2 lines of tears flowed down her beautiful face. Second young master, yesterday I just wanted to help you wash up and let you have a good rest, but you grabbed my hand and didn't let go, and then, she bit her lips and looked as if she was about to die from embarrassment. She lowered her head and didn't say anything, but she kept crying. But even if she didn't say anything, the crowd could roughly guess what had happened. Looking at this woman's pitiful look, Xiahou Tingan's reprimand was instantly stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say anything. His heart was already in a mess. No wonder Jiang Yuji had such a reaction when she came in. No wonder her words were so harsh. I thought I was just hungover at Chun Feng restaurant, but it turned out to be, but I don't remember anything. Xiahou Tingan turned around anxiously and looked at Jiang Yuji. Yuji, listen to me. It's not what you think it is. Jiang Yuji only looked at him and the woman on the bed with resentment. What am I thinking about? Isn't the truth right in front of me? Do I still need to think about it? Xiahou Tingan, we haven't even gotten married. How dare you do such a thing outside? You've really disappointed me. The reason why Jiang Yuji liked Xiahou Tingan was largely because he was gentle, restrained, and well-mannered. He wasn't like those playboys in Xiling City who were ignorant and incompetent. But now, this incident will spread throughout the entire Xiling City very quickly. Seeing Jiang Yuji's agitated look, Xiahou Tingan knew that she was furious. He hurriedly put on his clothes and walked over. Yuji, listen to me properly explain, peck. His hand had just touched Jiang Yuji's hand when she harshly slapped it away. Don't dirty my hands. Jiang Yuji's face flushed red, and her voice was sharp as she said every word clearly. Xiahou Tingan, Mi Jiang Residence's reputation has been implicated by you. If you like to do this, just do it. This marriage is cancelled. Xiahou Tingan's face burned as if he had been harshly slapped twice in public. If it were any other time, he could tolerate whatever Jiang Yuji threw at him. It didn't matter if he admitted his mistake or begged for mercy. As long as he could coax her, he could do anything. But Jiang Yuji saying this in front of so many people was undoubtedly tearing off his face and harshly trampling on it. Is she using the marriage to threaten me? The hatred and anger that had accumulated in Xiahou Tingan's heart for a long time instantly exploded. His face rapidly turned cold, and he blurted out without thinking. So be it. Do you really think I can't do without you? I've long had enough of you. With this angry shout, the entire room instantly fell silent. Jiang Yuji was dazed, and her face instantly turned pale. She only wanted to vent the anger in her heart, and she only said the cancellation of the marriage out of impulse. This was because she knew that Xiahou Tingan was most afraid of her saying this. Originally, she just wanted to scare him, but she didn't expect him to directly agree. Also, what else did he say? At that moment, something in Jiang Yuji's heart suddenly collapsed. Her body swayed and she almost fell to the ground. Someone supported her from behind and gently said, "Fourth Mississippi, Fourth Miss, are you all right?" Jiang Yuji turned around in a daze and saw a beautiful face. It was Shui Lu. Jiang Yuji immediately pushed her away in disgust. Nobody in Chunfeng restaurant is good. They're all cheap and flirtatious. Shui Lu didn't seem to care as she smiled and looked at Xiahou Tingan. Second young master, it seems like you haven't sobered up from yesterday. Don't you know that the truth after drinking is the most hurtful? Jiang Yuji instantly felt like she was stabbed by a knife. Truth after drinking. Xiahou Tingan is saying all of this from the bottom of his heart? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 806. Many pairs of eyes were watching them from outside the door. Jiang Yuji felt as if there was a dagger at her back, and she had never felt so embarrassed before. She glared at Xiahou Tingan with bloodshot eyes, and every word seemed to be squeezed out with her teeth clenched. Xiahou Tingan, you said it yourself. Don't regret it in the future. Then, she turned around and ran outside. The crowd hurriedly moved aside. Jiang Yuji's figure quickly disappeared from Chunfeng restaurant. The crowd didn't speak for a long time. Shui Lu's lips curved up undetectably. Things are progressing more smoothly than I expected. I just sent a message to Jiang Yuji to lure her over. I originally wanted them to kick up a fuss and talk about the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. I didn't expect them to directly say that they want to cancel the engagement. This time, the Xiahou residents really did not have the slightest bit of justification. If they still want to marry the Jiang residents, they have no other choice but to take out the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. This is more convenient. Shui Lu turned around and looked at Xiahou Tingan. He was standing at the same spot, and his face was pale. His expression looked very complicated. Drinking this wine was really worth it. Second young master, Fourth Missy Jiang seems very sad. You should quickly chase after her. Shui Lu advised him considerately. The worry that just appeared in Xiahou Tingan's heart instantly disappeared. He coldly chided. She can leave if she wants to. What does it have to do with me? Shui Lu's expression changed slightly, and she smiled. Whatever you say is naturally what it is. Then we'll take our leave first. If you have any instructions, feel free to tell us. Then she turned around and smiled at the crowd. You can all leave. The crowd then left to busy themselves with their own matters. However, who wouldn't treat such a huge incident as a topic of conversation after bumping into it? Not long later, this good show at Chunfeng restaurant would spread throughout the entire Xiling city. Shui waved at the girl in the room. Xiao Dai, come over. The girl called Xiao Dai bit her lips and silently picked up her clothes to wear. When she walked to Xiahou Tingan's side, she bowed and looked down. Today's matter was caused by Little Butterfly. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Xiahou Tingan originally knew that this matter was mainly his fault, and he couldn't blame the young lady. Hearing her say this, his heart ached even more. Xiao Dai continued, second young master and fourth young mistress Jiang are a match made in heaven. If there is any animosity between the two of you because of Xiao Dai really can't bear it. Xiao Dai is willing to go to the Jiang mansion to ask for forgiveness. As long as I can beg for fourth young mistress Jiang's forgiveness, Xiao Dai will do anything. Xiahou Tingan didn't feel good when he saw how she was willing to compromise for the greater good. When he thought of Jiang Yuji's arrogant and domineering vixen, he was filled with anger. They weren't even married yet. If they got married, who knew how much trouble they would cause in the future? Why are you going to the Jiang mansion? Just stay here and wait. Xiahou Tingan thought for a moment and took out a cosmic ring. From today onwards, you will follow me. However, you probably won't be able to enter the Xiahou residence. I will order someone to find a small residence and you will live there in the future. Xiao Dai seemed to be overwhelmed by the favor as she immediately knelt down and said that she didn't dare to. However, Xiahou Tingan was very insistent as he threw the cosmic ring down and left. I want to go back and explain this to my father. I'm not going to get married to her. After Xiahou Tingan left, Shui Lu then went forward to help Xiao Dai up and smiled. Xiao Dai, it's been hard on you. Xiao Dai stood up, and her eyes were clear and determined. Where was the previous gentleness in her eyes? Ms. Lu, don't worry. Xiahou Tingan didn't take advantage of me. She didn't want to suffer like this. Shui Lu smiled. Of course I'm aware of your capabilities. However, I'll have to trouble you in the future. Xiao Dai said firmly. For your highness, I won't hesitate to go through fire and water. As expected, the commotion at Chunfeng restaurant quickly spread throughout the entire Xiling. When Xiahou Tingan returned to the residence, he realized that the atmosphere wasn't right. All the servants looked at him with fear and trepidation. Their expressions were strange. At this point, Xiahou Tingan knew that the news must have spread. He didn't need to think to know what was waiting for him. However, he had already made up his mind to never lower his head to the Jiang residence again. Even if Jiang Yuji was willing to continue with this marriage, he wasn't willing to. You still dare to come back? Xiahou Tingan hadn't even walked a distance when he saw Xiahou Rong angrily walking over. His heart skipped a beat, and he immediately explained. Father, listen to me, Pack? Xiahou Rong harshly slapped him. Xiahou Tingan stumbled and directly fell to the ground. You're trying to anger me to death. Xiahou Rong's face was green, and his chest heaved up and down violently. This unfilial son. He then grabbed Xiahou Tingan's collar and dragged him into the study. Xiahou Tingan wanted to say something, but his collar was tightly grabbed, so he couldn't say a single word. He had difficulty breathing, and his face flushed red. Bang! Xiahou Rong threw him to the ground. Xiahou Tingan fell so hard that his bones were about to crack. Father, you're too disappointing. Xiahou Rong was so angry that his fingers trembled as he pointed at his nose and scolded. Do you know that you gave the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill to someone else this time? Why do I have such a useless son like you? Mystic Forest. Time passed day by day. There was still no movement in the forest. That day, when Chang Wanzhou said that Chu Luiwei was about to come out, the group of people was elated. In the end, they waited for a long time, but she still didn't come out. The few of them could only continue waiting. However, Mu Hongyu and the other 2 didn't forget to cultivate during this period of waiting. With Qin Yi and Lei Laoxi's patient guidance, they all had some breakthroughs. Especially Chang Wanzhou, his improvement was the most obvious. Qin Yi originally wanted to take a look at the seal in his body, but it didn't appear again after that day. Even though he felt a little regretful, Qin Yi didn't insist on taking a look at Chang Wanzhou. It's not too late to talk about this when Her Highness comes out. After all, Chang Wanzhou listens to me. After everything here was settled, it wasn't impossible to solve these problems bit by bit. At night, the blue-black night sky was deep and quiet, and a round moon hung high in the sky. Gradually, that moon was dyed with a tinge of red. In the Red Moon Desert, rustling sounds could be heard. I've finally waited until now. If I don't see Lass again, I'm afraid I'll be much older. Lan Zhao's voice was still ethereal and pleasant. Let's hurry and leave. Diwu, where's Big Bao? I didn't see her either. She was just here. Lan Zhao suddenly thought of something and secretly cursed. He's gone ahead of us. This damn child. Underground. In front of Chu Luiwei, the bloodline power in half of the skeleton was almost completely refined and condensed into a blood pearl. The legendary three-eyed eagle's body was almost half reconstructed. Chu Luiwei stared intently, and her heart seemed to be tightly clenched by something. Just as she was about to continue, she suddenly heard a baby-like voice. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. It's that voice again. She immediately looked up. Digression: mobile users, please browse and read at 12 a.m. tomorrow. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 807. A boy who looked like he was 4 or 5 years old appeared in front of her. Chu Luiwei was stunned for a moment. Was it this child who shouted just now? But what did he shout? Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows slightly. She vaguely sensed that something was wrong. While she was in a daze, the little boy had already flown down and landed lightly and silently not far away from her. Chu Luiwei was shocked. This little boy's aura was extremely obscure. He seemed to be very powerful. She sized him up carefully and cautiously. He was small and wore a blue robe. He had black hair and black eyes. He looked to be no more than 5 years old. His small face was cute and round, making people want to reach out and pinch it. But that gaze did not seem like a child's. It was cold and majestic. Just by looking at it, one would be able to feel its extraordinary aura. Chu Luiwei was surprised. Since when did De Huang Swamp have such a person? But what made her feel even more strange was the way this little boy looked at her. It was very strange. Although he was very restrained, there was an unconcealable joy in the depths of his eyes. This made his cold little face look a little gentler. Why did he look as if he knew her? Chu Luiwei thought silently. On the other hand, Duge Mabao looked at Chu Luiwei in front of him and carefully sized up her current appearance. He had mixed feelings. It was a lie to say that he did not miss her. It was also a lie to say that he wanted to teach her a lesson. In these few years, they had waited day and night and imagined countless scenes of their reunion. They also thought that she might have changed after such a long time. But who would have thought that even his entire physical body would be completely changed? This face was no longer the face in their memories. But the expression between her eyebrows was extremely similar. Debeo! You shameless person! You! At this moment, an exasperated old voice sounded. Chu Luiwei only felt something flash in front of her. Then, there was another person beside the little boy. It was an old man. He was wearing a white robe. His hair was also white, but he looked hale and hearty. He had the aura of an immortal. Unfortunately, the moment he opened his mouth, the immortal aura on him disappeared instantly. Diwu Zhangze was about to scold again when he saw Duge Mabao looking ahead. The corner of his mouth twitched. He raised his head stiffly and found standing not far in front of him. She was looking at them at this moment. How shameful! Diwu Zhangze was annoyed. He was so focused on scolding Duge Mabao that he almost forgot that the girl was here. He clenched his fist and coughed violently. Don't mind us. Chu Luiwei blinked. Why did it seem that this old man also knew her? Judging from their tone, they seemed quite close. Chu Luiwei opened her mouth. What are you arguing? Don't you see that you is busy? An ethereal and pleasant voice came. Chu Luiwe looked up again. She saw a young man floating down from above. He was wearing a blue brocade robe, a white jade belt around his waist, and a blue jade crown on his head. From top to bottom, he was very clean and elegant. What an elegant young master. Chu Luiwe looked at his face, her eyes flashing slightly. This was a beautiful face that was hard to distinguish between a man and a woman. His facial features were exquisite and perfect. The contours of his cheeks were also very smooth, unlike the sharp edges of ordinary men. This added a bit of youthfulness to him. The most moving part was that pair of amber eyes. They were clean and clear, sparkling and translucent like the morning dew. Chu Luiwe had only seen two men who could be described as beautiful so far. One was Chang Wanzhou, and the other was the man in front of her. They both had exquisite and perfect looks, but the feeling they gave people was completely different. If Chang Wanzhou was said to be a beautiful rose with thorns, then this man was like a transparent and fragile glass. His thin lips curved slightly, and he walked over with a smile. His every move carried a high and mighty air of nobility. It was as if this wasn't a dark and cramped cave, but a magnificent hall. He walked to the side of the two and stood still, looking at Chu Luiwe with a smile. "Girl, long time no see. You've become more beautiful." Du Mabao glanced at him coldly and spat out a sentence mercilessly. "What are you talking about? Why don't you take a look at where this is? It's not like this is his incomparably shabby palace." Lan Xiao didn't think much of it. "Why do you care? As the only handsome man here, if I don't work hard, can I still count on you guys?" They were just jealous of him. Diu Zhangzi rubbed his face. After so many years, he thought that he had already trained his old face. He didn't expect that he would still be defeated by Lan Xiao. How did he do it? Every time he came out to meet people, he would embarrass everyone? Du Mabao couldn't be bothered with him anymore. A damn pervert will always be a damn pervert. He can't change at all. Chu Luiwe looked at the people in front of her with a blank expression. These three people had really different personalities. Although they looked like a child, a young man, and an old man, from their conversation, it seemed like there was no difference in seniority between them. This wasn't particularly strange. There were thousands of techniques in the world, and the cultivators' aptitudes were also different. After cultivating to a certain level, the appearance one would maintain would naturally be different. However, it was obvious that these people didn't have any ill intentions towards her. This made Chu Luiwe feel a little more at ease. However, she thought for a long time, but she really couldn't remember seeing these people before. If she had seen such distinctive people before, she definitely wouldn't have forgotten them. Chu Luiwe guessed in her heart. Perhaps they had mistaken her for someone else? Rong Xiao, who was at the side, stopped what he was doing when they appeared one after another. He took a step back and leaned lazily against the mountain wall. He crossed his arms and looked at the scene in front of him lazily. Although he felt that it wasn't very appropriate to meet them now, this was Dahuang Swamp after all, and it was also their territory. He might not be able to stop them from doing whatever they wanted. Rather than suddenly bumping into Chu Luiwe somewhere and causing all sorts of trouble, it was better to meet them directly now. At least he was here. Seeing the three of them quarreling with each other, Chu Luiwe was a little confused. They seemed to be here for her, but she didn't even know their identities now. Thinking of this, her red lips curled up slightly, and she revealed a polite smile. "I'm Chu Luiwe. Greetings, seniors." Although it looked a little strange, the three of them were very strong. It was right to call them seniors. Chu Luiwe was thinking this when she suddenly saw the three of them looking over. Their gazes were very strange, as if they had seen something inconceivable. Du Mabao frowned and asked, "What did you call us?" "What did you call us?" You can get a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 808. Could it be that even Senior couldn't do it? Chu Luiwe found it strange. Just as she was about to speak, she realized that their expressions were all very strange. Her heart skipped a beat, and she suddenly realized something. Both parties fell into a short silence. Du Mabao and the rest then realized that the girl in front of them seemed to be looking at them differently from before. It was as if she was looking at a stranger. Diwu Zhangzi couldn't help but say, "Girl, this is..." Something seemed wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. After a moment, Dugu Mabao spoke again. He stared at Chu Liwei, pointed at himself, and asked word by word, "Who am I?" Once his voice fell, the surroundings were silent. Lan Xiao and Diwu Zhangzi's expressions also became serious. They realized that things seemed to be different from what they had expected. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to be gripped by something, and it tightened bit by bit. She wanted to speak, but her throat felt dry. After a while, she shook her head. "I'm sorry, I've never seen you before, so I don't know your identities. If I've offended you, please forgive me." In an instant, the surrounding space seemed to freeze. Chu Liwei even sensed the fierce aura that suddenly erupted from the other party's body. That little boy's face instantly seemed to be covered with a layer of frost, and it was extremely cold. The ground under his feet actually cracked instantly. Deep cracks spread out from under his feet. Although Chu Liwei had already expected that these people were extremely strong, she still couldn't hide her shock when she saw this scene. He was just angry, and he already had such a suppressive aura. If he really attacked, she didn't know how strong he would be. "Big Bao." Lan Xiao reacted extremely quickly and immediately called out to him. Dugu Mabao's gaze flickered, and he took a deep breath before retracting his aura. However, the expression on his little face was still so cold that it could freeze people to death. This time, Lan Xiao didn't tease him. According to Big Bao's personality, it was already good enough that he didn't destroy this place after hearing this. The reason he could tolerate it was most likely because the girl was busy with serious matters. No matter what, De Bao treated the girl well. Lan Xiao sighed and looked at Chu Liwei with a complicated gaze. "Girl, do you really not remember us?" Seeing them like this, Chu Liwei felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. Originally, they all came here happily, but because of what she said just now, seeing their eyes that were originally filled with anticipation turn dim and disappointed, she actually felt bad in her heart. For a moment, she even wished that she could recognize them. This thought flashed through his mind, but it gave Chu Liwei a shock. She was not a kind person and should not have such feelings towards strangers. Did she really know them in the past? This conjecture made Chu Liwei feel a little uneasy. Previously, she had guessed that she might have forgotten something, but now, she was even more certain. She suppressed the chaotic thoughts in her heart and tried to make her voice sound as calm as possible. "I don't remember." Although they had already guessed it, hearing Chu Liyue's affirmative answer still made Lan Xiao and the rest's hearts sink. How could she not remember? In the past, they had been together for so long and experienced so many things. Now that she had changed bodies, she actually said that she had forgotten everything. "Girl, you're not kidding us, are you?" Diwu Zhangzi held onto his last glimmer of hope and asked carefully. Chu Liwei looked apologetic. "Sorry." Diwu Zhangzi's expression darkened, then he laughed bitterly. Actually, he could also tell that the girl was not joking. Her expression clearly showed that she did not remember anything. The few of them fell silent and did not know what to say for a moment. Chu Liwei frowned slightly. When she was reborn, she inherited the original owner's memory. Whether it was Chu Liwei or Shang Guanyu, she had no impression of these people. However, this inexplicable sense of familiarity could not be explained. Lan Xiao and Diwu Zhangzi looked at each other. Of all their calculations, they did not expect the girl to have lost her memory. Then, how much did she remember? The soul in her body was clearly complete as well. At this moment, Dugu Mabao suddenly took a step forward. "What's your name?" Chu Liwei was stunned. Didn't she already say her name? Why was he still asking? Suddenly, her expression changed. Dugu Mabao saw the change in her expression clearly. He stared at Chu Liwei as if he was waiting for something. Chu Liwei slowly clenched her fists. They were waiting for her to admit that she was Shang Guanyu. Apart from herself, very few people knew about this matter. Even Qi Han only dared to look for her to confirm her identity after searching for countless clues. However, these people seemed to have known who she was from the start. How did they recognize her? Since her rebirth, this was the first time she had seen these people. From start to finish, he had only spoken a few words with them. Chu Liyue's mind was in a mess. If we delay any longer, the remaining half of the legendary three-eyed eagle's body won't be able to wait any longer. A low and lazy voice came from the side. Chu Liyue suddenly snapped out of her daze and looked in front of her. The blood bead had already condensed, and the remaining half of the legendary three-eyed eagle's body was almost fully recovered. It was waiting for the next step. She immediately collected her thoughts and threw the remaining medicinal herbs down. As the purplish-gold Buddha leaf had already been absorbed by the legendary three-eyed eagle, it was slightly easier this time. A translucent white bone slowly flew towards the legendary three-eyed eagle. Then, half of the black shadow surrounded it. Chu Liyue's mind moved, and the blood bead flew over as well. On the bone, muscles and flesh started to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. The wings on the other side were also gradually taking shape. Chu Liyue did not dare to relax and continued to watch it closely. No one knew what would happen until the last moment. For this day, she and the legendary three-eyed eagle had waited for too long and suffered too much. If they failed, all their previous efforts would be wasted. So, they could only succeed. Seeing that Chu Liyue had started to work, Duga Mabao's expression changed, but he did not say anything to disturb her. Actually, Chu Liyue did not need to answer. He already knew the answer. Then he looked at Rong Xiu, who was leaning against the stone wall. Only then did he realize that he was still wearing a mask. What was he trying to hide? According to his relationship with you, there was really no need for him to do so. Unless had forgotten about him. Thinking of this, Duga Mabao's expression changed slightly. What had happened in these few years? This girl clearly remembered her identity, but she had forgotten so many of them. He stared at Rong Xiu. I have something to ask you. Oh, I have something to ask you. Chapter 809. Rong Xiu turned his gaze slightly and glanced at Chu Liyue. He waved his sleeves, and the barrier outside Chu Liyue glowed faintly. He smiled slightly and said, "She's busy now. It's better not to disturb her." Duga Mabao frowned even more. Obviously, Rong Xiu deliberately used the barrier to seal it because he didn't want the girl to hear their conversation. On the one hand, it was to not disturb her. On the other hand, he really didn't want her to know anything. What was he thinking? Duga Mabao went straight to the point. She doesn't remember us now, and she has forgotten you, right? Lan Xiao and Diwu Zhangze also looked over. Rong Xiu nodded calmly. This point couldn't be clearer now. Seeing Rong Xiu admit it so easily, Duga Mabao and the others were a little surprised. Lan Xiao touched his chin. She actually forgot about you too. Oh, my mood seems to have suddenly improved a little. They were originally very sad, but since Rong Xiu was the same as them, there was nothing much to say. Diwu Zhangze nodded in agreement, which was rare. Me too. Dugu Mabao's face was a little dark. Can't the two of you work harder? How can you compare to him? They've all been forgotten. How can they compare who has been forgotten more thoroughly? Besides, Rong Xiu was Rong Xiu, and they were them. To the girl, there was no distinction between importance and importance. At least for him, forget Rong Xiu? Forget them? Diwu Zhangze rubbed the space between his eyebrows. This was the bad thing about Dabeo. He often couldn't recognize his own identity. He often felt that he was the most important person to the girl. In fact, he was only one of them. Lan Xiao couldn't be bothered to argue with Dabeo. He continued, then how many things has she forgotten? If she forgets too many things, it'll be troublesome. Rong Xiu paused. She doesn't remember anything outside of the Tianling dynasty. Their expressions stiffened. What did you say? Lan Xiao was in disbelief. Completely forgotten. Rong Xiu smiled and glanced sideways at Chu Liyue. A trace of gentleness appeared in the depths of his eyes. She remembers herself. Also, she still remembered who she loved. The West Hill. The Jiang Mansion. The atmosphere in the entire residence was cold and heavy. Everyone was doing things cautiously, not daring to say half a word. They were afraid that if they said or did something wrong, they would offend their superiors and bring trouble to themselves. First, it was eldest young master who was injured. Then, Xiahou Tingan flirted outside, which angered fourth Missy. Bad things happened one after another in the Jiang mansion. Now, everyone in Xiling knew that Jiang Yuji had barged into Chun Feng restaurant and caught Xiahou Tingan in bed. She even caused a huge scene and threatened to cancel the engagement between the two parties. The Jiang family and the Xiahou family's faces were all lost together. All the servants in the Jiang mansion served Jiang Yuji with fear and trepidation. Jiang Yuqing naturally heard about this as well. After Jiang Yuji came back, she only said that she wanted to cancel the engagement with Xiahou Tingan. Then she locked herself in her room and smashed everything in the room, but she refused to come out. Jiang Yuqing knew her too well, so he purposely waited for a day before coming to find her. When he reached Jiang Yuji's courtyard, he directly dismissed the servants and went up to knock on the door. "Yuji, it's me." There was no movement in the room. Jiang Yuqing waited for a while and said, "I know you're wronged. Big brother knows that you have been wronged. This time, I came to help you vent your anger. You really don't want me to go in?" Then, Jiang Yuqing waited patiently. As expected, Jiang Yuji walked over to open the door after a while. It had only been a day, but she looked much more haggard and haggard. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were red and swollen. She didn't look like a pampered lady at all. Jiang Yuqing's heart ached when he saw his sister in such a sad state. "Yuji, brother, how do you plan to help me?" Jiang Yuji looked at him fixedly, and her eyes were filled with anger and hatred. "Let's go in and talk." Jiang Yuqing walked in. Jiang Yuji didn't stop him and turned to walk in. After closing the door, Jiang Yuqing then saw the mess in the room, and there was almost no space to walk. He knitted his brows. He knew that his sister liked Xiahou Tingan. Even though she was usually pampered and willful, there was nothing to say about Xiahou Tingan. If not, he wouldn't have agreed to discuss this marriage. After all, Xiahou Tingan wasn't the most outstanding person in the Xiahou family. "Yuji, Xiahou Tingan let you down this time. Don't worry, I won't let you suffer for nothing." Jiang Yuqing's voice was as calm as usual, but it had a hint of murderous intent. Since he dared to let you down, he naturally has to have the guts to bear the consequences. Jiang Yuji was dazed. "Brother, what do you plan to do?" Jiang Yuqing lightly caressed her hair. "Originally, I liked the Xiahou family's third young master. He's much better than Xiahou Tingan in all aspects. But because you like Xiahou Tingan, you decided to marry him. In Xiling, it's a blessing for anyone who can marry you. Since Xiahou Tingan doesn't know what's good for him, it's better to cancel the marriage agreement." Seeing that Jiang Yuji seemed to be hesitating, he thought for a while and said, "If you can't bear it, let him live and turn him into a useless person." Jiang Yuji couldn't help but grab his sleeve. "No, I can't, brother. I just said it in a fit of anger that day." Jiang Yuqing knitted his brows. "He treated you so well, but you still won't give up? Do you really want to marry him?" Jiang Yuji's tears flowed down in despair and pain. "Brother, I don't want to do this either, but I just can't bear to." She regretted saying it that day, but every time she thought of the scene, she felt terrible. "All these years, I've only liked Xiahou Tingan. If I didn't fall for him, I wouldn't be so sad." Jiang Yuqing coldly said, "No buts. He's not worth it. I can take this chance to get the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill back, but the person I'm going to marry must be changed." Jiang Yuji sobbed. "But how can you control your feelings? Even brother knows that the princess doesn't like you, but you still got engaged to her, right?" Digression. Mobile users at 6 p.m., please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 8:10. Jiang Yuqing's expression instantly changed. He stared at Jiang Yuji with an intimidating gaze, and his expression was as dark as water. Jiang Yuji also realized that she had misspoken, and her heart sank. "Big brother, that's not what I meant. Where did you find out about all this?" Jiang Yuqing grabbed Jiang Yuji's wrist and asked word by word. Jiang Yuji had never seen her big brother look at her like this before, let alone speak to her in such a tone. She was so scared. Big brother, let go of my hand first. It hurts. She panicked and wanted to pry Jiang Yuqing's hand away. However, Jiang Yuqing's hand was still clamped tightly on hers, and he didn't let go at all. Let me ask you, how did you find out about all this? Jiang Yuqing raised his voice. His tone was very stern, as if he was interrogating her. Everyone said that the two of them were a match made in heaven and had an extremely good relationship. Countless people in the entire Tianling dynasty were filled with envy and jealousy toward him. It was all because of the engagement between him and her. However, only he and Shang Guanyu knew the inside story of this matter. Now that Shang Guanyu was dead, no one else knew about it. When did Jiang Yuji find out about it? Only then did Jiang Yuji realize the seriousness of the matter. Looking at her big brother's frighteningly fierce expression, a deep fear arose in her heart. She hurriedly said, I heard it by accident. That day, I went to Thousand View Garden to look for you. In the end, I happened to see you talking to the crown princess. I only heard a little. Jiang Yuqing knew which day she was talking about. What else? What else did you hear? What else do you know? Jiang Yuqing didn't relax at all. It was as if he was interrogating a criminal. No more. Really no more. Big brother, my hand hurts. Jiang Yuji said repeatedly. Her face was a little pale from the pain, and her eyes were filled with panic. Jiang Yuqing stared at her for a long time. After confirming that she wasn't lying, he finally shook her hand off. Jiang Yuji staggered a step before stabilizing herself with great difficulty. He lowered his head and saw that his wrist was already bruised. She felt even more wronged. All these years, no matter what she said or did, Big Brother had never treated her this way. Now, she had only mentioned the Empress concubine and Jiang Yuji was angry and aggrieved, but she knew that she had touched her brother's reverse scale. No matter what, she couldn't say anything more. This is not something you should know. Jiang Yuqing said coldly. In the future, don't let me hear it a second time, understand? Jiang Yuji's body trembled slightly. She quickly nodded, but she didn't even dare to look at Jiang Yuqing. Big Brother was too scary just now. Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes and calmed the waves in his heart. He glanced at Jiang Yuji and saw the wound on her wrist, as well as her cowering appearance. He frowned. Just now, he had lost control of himself and probably scared her. Jiang Yuqing frowned. As for the matter between you and Xiahou Tingon, have you thought it through? Jiang Yuji paused in her actions and nodded hesitantly, but her eyes were filled with hatred. But I must kill that B*teach from Chun Feng restaurant. Jiang Yuqing chuckled. Do you know that woman has already redeemed herself from Chun Feng restaurant and found another house in the city to stay in? What? Jiang Yuji widened her eyes in shock. Almost instantly, she understood what was going on. Xiahou Tingon is really going to have a woman outside. He really doesn't care about me at all. To think that I kept consoling myself for the entire day that it was all that B*teach's fault, and that Xiahou Tingon only did this because he was drunk and muddle-headed. Who knew that he would do such a thing in the blink of an eye? This is a slap to my face. He wants me to become the laughingstock of the entire Xiling city. Jiang Yuji's fingernails dug deeply into her palms. Was it all fake that he treated me so well in the past? In comparison, what I said just now is simply a joke. She walked out of the door. Where are you going? Jiang Yuqing stopped her. Jiang Yuji looked furious. I'm going to teach that adulterous pair a lesson. I'll make them wish they were dead. Jiang Yuqing continued asking. Then, do you still miss him? Do you still want to marry him? Jiang Yuji's chest seemed to be pressed by a huge rock. She shook her head hard and her eyes were red, but there were no more tears. That's good. Jiang Yuqing then nodded in satisfaction. I forgot to tell you something. Yesterday night, Xiahou Tingon was chased out of the residence by Xiahou Rong. It turned out that after Xiahou Tingon returned to the residence, he was taught a lesson by Xiahou Rong. Xiahou Rong requested for Xiahou Tingon to come to the Jiang residence to admit his mistake and beg for Jiang Yuji's forgiveness. However, Xiahou Tingon was determined to cancel this marriage. He was very stubborn and wouldn't agree to anything. In the end, Xiahou Rong couldn't take it anymore and chased him out in a fit of rage. He originally wanted to use this to scare Xiahou Tingan, but he didn't expect him to be so stubborn for once and leave the Xiahou residence in the middle of the night. I've already sent someone to find out. He's staying with that girl now. Jiang Yuqing's sentence was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Xiahou Tingan would rather be chased out and stay with that lowly girl from Chunfeng restaurant than beg for her forgiveness. What does this mean? Could it be that I, the Jiang family's fourth Missy, am inferior to a prostitute? From today onwards, I don't know what the people in Xiling City will say about me. Jiang Yuji only felt her face burning, and her mind was blank. Only endless hatred surged up. Then her eyes rolled and she directly fainted. Jiang Yuqing supported her and carried her to the bed. Then he ordered someone to tidy up and invited Feng Shangyuan over to take Jiang Yuji's pulse. After confirming that she only fainted because of anger and that there wasn't anything serious, Jiang Yuqing felt much more at ease. Then, he sat by the bed and personally took care of Jiang Yuji. When Jiang Yuji woke up, it was already evening. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw Jiang Yuqing, who was guarding by the bedside. "Yuji, you're awake?" Jiang Yuqing's voice returned to its usual gentleness. Jiang Yuji's grievances exploded, and her eyes turned red. "Okay, let the past be the past." Jiang Yuqing lightly patted her hand. When she was almost done venting, he fed her water. Finally, when Jiang Yuji calmed down, he said softly, "Brother Jiang, don't worry. What do you think of the Xiahou residence's third young master?" Jiang Yuji knew what he meant. She hesitated. "Brother, I don't want to go to Xiahou residence anymore." Halfway through her sentence, she saw Jiang Yuqing nonchalantly glancing at her. She suddenly paused and nodded stiffly. "Okay." Jiang Yuqing looked comforted. "This time, the Xiahou residence must give me the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 8:11. Xiahou Tingan and Jiang Yuji's marriage fell through just like that. After the commotion at Chunfeng restaurant, Xiahou Tingan was chased out of the residence, and Jiang Yuji was engaged to the Xiahou family's third young master, Xiahou Yushu. The development of this matter exceeded everyone's expectations, and it directly stunned the people in Xiling City who were waiting to see the two families make a fool of themselves. Strange. Why is the Jiang family and the Xiahou family still having a marriage alliance after such a thing happened? If it were an ordinary family, they might not even interact with each other anymore. Even if these two families are the top nobles and have to consider many factors when doing things, it shouldn't be to this extent, right? Is Jiang Yuji set her mind on the Xiahou family? Or is the Xiahou family clinging on to Jiang Yuji? Outsiders had no way of knowing, and they only talked about it heatedly after meals. But no matter who talked about it, they knew that Xiahou Tingan was the one who suffered the most. Jiang Yuji was Jiang Yuqing's biological sister. Who didn't want to be related to them? Even the Xiahou family was no exception. Xiahou Rong was the grand tutor, and logically speaking, he didn't need to care too much about this. But now that His Majesty had been in a coma for close to 2 years, almost all the power was in the hands of Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing. Among the younger generation in the Xiahou family, there weren't any outstanding cultivation talents. They naturally needed to have a good relationship with the Jiang family. A marriage alliance was the best. Previously, Xiahou Tingan and Jiang Yuji had always been together, so everyone thought that good things were about to happen. Hence, everyone was more polite to the Xiahou family. Xiahou Tingan's status also rose along with it. In the end, Xiahou Tingan was chased out of the Xiahou family overnight, and the unknown third young master Xiahou replaced him. What other benefits can I, Xiahou Tingan, get? Everyone thought that Xiahou Tingan was crazy. Second young master. In a mansion in Xiling City, Xiahou Tingan lay on the bed in the room. His face and body were covered in wounds, and his originally handsome face was almost swollen. Xiao Dai walked in with a tray. There were a few jade bottles, gauze, and other things on the tray. Second young master, let me help you change your bandages. Xiao Dai sat down by the bed, and her delicate face slightly knitted her thin brows as if she was very worried about him. Xiahou Tingan originally didn't want anyone to see him like this, but he really needed someone to take care of him. He held Xiao Dai's hand and sighed. Xiao Dai, I can see it clearly now. Only you treat me with sincerity. After he was chased out of the Xiahou residence, he had nowhere to go. He had planned to stay at a few friends' houses, but none of them opened the door for him. In desperation, he went to Spring Breeze Restaurant. The people of Chunfeng Lu had told him where Xiao Dai lived. He had no choice but to come here. He didn't expect that Xiao Dai didn't dislike his appearance at all. Instead, she had been doing her best to take care of him. On the other hand, none of his old friends had come to visit him these past few days. Xiahou Tingan felt that he had experienced enough of the fickleness of human nature. Xiao Dai smiled faintly. This is what Little Butterfly should do. It would be good if second young master didn't dislike Little Butterfly. As she spoke, she calmly pulled her hand out to grab the medicine bottle. The injuries on your body have healed a lot. After resting for a while, you will be completely healed. Xiahou Tingan didn't mind her actions and nodded. His injuries looked serious, but Xiahou Rong didn't actually kill him. After all, they were father and son. Thinking of this, sorrow flashed across Xiahou Tingan's eyes. After he calmed down these few days, he also felt that he was too rash. However, he didn't want to admit his mistake. This was because he really didn't want to tolerate Jiang Yuji and continue being such a coward. Xiao Dai sighed and persuaded him. Second young master, it's not a solution for you to keep staying outside. Grand Tutor is your biological father after all. Even if your bones are broken, your tendons are still connected. When your body recovers, you can go back and apologize to Grand Tutor, right? Xiahou Tingan didn't say anything. If it was before, he would definitely reject it. But these few days, he realized that without the Xiahou family's support, he was indeed in trouble everywhere. He also didn't want to lose everything that he once had because of Jiang Yuji. Xiao Dai paused and said seemingly unintentionally, "Don't worry. I heard people outside today that third young master is already engaged to fourth Missy Jiang, and they'll be getting married soon." What? Xiahou Tingan suddenly widened his eyes, and his face was filled with disbelief. Jiang Yuji has always liked me, Xiahou Tingan. When did it become that bastard born of a concubine to replace me? Among the people of the same generation in the Xiahou family, I hate this Xiahou Yushu the most. It's only been a few days, and there's actually such a huge change. Xiao Dai covered her mouth in shock. Are you unhappy? Xiahou Tingan didn't know what he was feeling. Jiang Yuji can marry anyone, but it can't be someone from the Xiahou family. Where is this going to leave me? Xiahou Tingan clenched his fists tightly, and his expression changed. Is father really planning to leave the position for Xiahou Yushu by doing this? Xiahou Tingan had always been the most doted on, and everything came too easily. As a result, when he knew that the things that originally belonged to him were snatched away by someone else, he couldn't accept it. When did this happen? Asked Xiahou Tingan darkly. Xiao Dai took half a step back timidly and hesitantly said, "It seems to be the day after you left the Xiahou family. It seems to be the day after you left the estate. Moreover, there are rumors outside that the Xiahou estate offered a very generous betrothal gift as an apology." Xiahou Tingan's brows twitched harshly. 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. They still plan to return this thing. Xiahou Tingan was filled with hatred. I originally planned to leave that thing for myself to use. All along, my cultivation talent was very average. Because of this, the Xiahou family was very unhappy with me both openly and secretly. He had waited for so long and endured so many grievances, all for the sake of this 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. But now, it's all gone. He lifted the blanket and was about to get up and walk out. But after taking 2 steps, his legs turned to jelly, and he fell down. Xiao Dai hurriedly went to help him. "Second young master, you didn't move aside." Xiahou Tingan pushed her away. Then, he forced himself to stand up and limped out of the room. "I want to take back the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. It's mine. Nobody can snatch it from me." Behind him, Xiao Dai looked at Xiahou Tingan's back view and smiled undetectably. The undercurrents in Xiling City were turbulent, but the mystic forest was quiet and peaceful. Even the few people underground were the same. After chatting, Dugamabao and the rest started to wait at the side like Rong Xiu. Since things have already come to this, there's no use saying anything else. But the girl is still that girl. What else can I do? I can only continue to pamper her. Time passed slowly. After some time, the legendary three-eyed eagle's physical body in front of Chu Luiyue was finally completely reconstructed. Hula! It suddenly spread its wings. A loud and clear cry reverberated in the air. To digression, tomorrow, 12 o'clock mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 8:12. This clear cry pierced through the clouds and mist, and one could even faintly hear the roar of a dragon. Its body was muscular, and its feathers were layered. When it spread its wings, it could almost cover the sky. Chu Luiyue could even clearly see each and every feather that was shiny and clean. Its eyes were black, and only its third eye was a brilliant purplish gold color. It was extremely noble. This was the true legendary three-eyed eagle. Its aura was actually several times stronger than before. In fact, it even faintly suppressed Dumpling. Chu Luiyue was secretly surprised. In fact, although the legendary three-eyed eagle was also a divine beast, its level was not the highest. The crimson gold heavenly phoenix and the great phoenix dragon were two great ancient divine beasts, supreme existences. Below them were some races, and according to the bloodline power in their bodies, they were divided into different levels. For example, a red-tailed phoenix like Dumpling was the closest type to the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Therefore, by right, Dumpling's level was ranked above the legendary three-eyed eagle. However, because the legendary three-eyed eagle had fused with the great phoenix dragon's bloodline power and inherited two sets of bones, it was actually superior to Dumpling, who had just broken through not long ago. The legendary three-eyed eagle was also shocked. Feeling its real physical body and the surging power in its body, its chest and abdomen seemed to be surging. It was done. It was really done. After being suppressed in this dark place for thousands of years, even it was filled with despair. However, this day had finally come. And all of this depended on one person, Chu Luiyue. If she had not brought it away, if she had not formed a contract with it, if she had not helped it find the purplish gold Bodhi leaf, it would definitely be trapped there forever and eventually die without a sound. The legendary three-eyed eagle folded its wings and lowered its head slightly to look at Chu Luiyue. I, the 287th generation eagle master of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan, Zichen, am willing to follow my master in life and death. A clear and powerful voice sounded in her heart. Every word was sincere and loyal. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly. Eagle Lord? Wasn't that the highest status existence in the three-eyed eagle clan? It turned out to be, due to my special identity, I have concealed something from my master. I hope that my master will forgive me. The legendary three-eyed eagle continued. At this time, its voice was very different from before. It sounded more like a young man in his 20s. Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. She not only contracted a mythological beast, but this mythological beast also happened to be the leader of the clan? Zichen? Is that your real name? The legendary three-eyed eagle lightly nodded. As divine beasts, there were very few that could form contracts with humans. Especially since it was once the eagle master, it was naturally more concerned about these things. Even if it did not think for itself, it had to think for the entire godly three-eyed eagle clan. Therefore, even though it had formed a contract with Chu Luiyue, there was still one last hurdle that it had yet to cross. Until now, Chu Luiyue had helped it reconstruct its body, which was equivalent to granting it a new life. Under such circumstances, it had given its body and mind completely. When it returned to the clan in the future, it could also account to them. It had a clear conscience toward itself, toward Chu Luiyue, and toward the clan. Chu Luiyue blinked and took a while to react. You have your own considerations. Why would I blame you? Chu Liyue smiled and her eyes curved. I'm more than happy. Eagle Master. Even though she did not know much about mythological beasts, she knew that it was a rare and fortunate thing for the leader of such a clan to agree to form a contract with her. What kind of luck did she have? Zichen? Then can I call you that in the future? As you command, my master. The legendary three-eyed eagle said respectfully. Chu Liyue's smile deepened, and her eyes were as bright as the stars. She knew that the legendary three-eyed eagle had never been very close to her. The two of them had been enemies at the beginning, then restrained each other, and then cooperated with each other. They had gone through too much in between. For such a mythological beast that had been suppressed for thousands of years, it was indeed very difficult to make it submit completely. Even after the two of them formed a contract and were bound together in life and death, Chu Liyue knew that there was always something between them. Today, that invisible barrier had finally been broken. From this moment on, the legendary three-eyed eagle was completely loyal to her. To Chu Liyue, there was only joy in her heart. She knew that the legendary three-eyed eagle's willingness to tell her its true identity was the greatest sincerity. Seeing that Chu Liyue did not hold any grudges, Zichen's last worry was completely put down. Its figure flashed, and it returned to Chu Liyue's body. Chu Liyue slowly exhaled. Thinking about how she had inexplicably formed a contract with the Eagle Master of the legendary three-eyed eagle, her mood was very complicated. Originally, she wanted to ask Zichen what had happened back then that it had been suppressed in that 9-story pagoda. But before she could open her mouth, she felt a few pairs of eyes staring at her with burning gazes. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. Only then did she remember that there were a few people beside her. She slowly looked up. On the left was the man in black. On the right were the 3 people who called her you. At this moment, these people all looked over. Your armor has been repaired. Rong Xiu leaned against the stone wall and said lazily. Chu Liyue was delighted and immediately wanted to go over. On the other side, Gudu Mabao also spoke. You haven't answered my question just now. Chu Liyue stopped in her tracks. She looked at the man in black and then looked at the 3 people. For a moment, she was in a difficult position. For some reason, she faintly felt that the air seemed to be filled with killing intent. Should she go and take back her pure gold armor first? Or should she go and ask those people what exactly they did with her? Chu Liyue was a little conflicted. She had an inexplicable premonition in her heart. These people all seemed to be very important to her. Even she herself didn't know where this thought came from, but after it appeared, it couldn't be dismissed. Chu Liyue hesitated for a moment, but she still lifted her leg and planned to go and take back her pure gold armor first. After all, she had seen the big master twice. In comparison, he seemed to be more credible. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly as he looked up at the few people opposite him. Dugu Mabao's little face darkened. Lan Xiao couldn't help but touch his face. It was really strange. Rong Xiu was wearing a mask now and didn't show his face. How did he still win? Could it be that he had become ugly? Or that girl didn't look at his face anymore? Thinking of this, an ominous premonition suddenly surfaced in Lan Xiao's heart. That girl had changed her body now, and her memories were also in a mess. She might have really changed. At this moment, Chu Liyue had already walked in front of Rong Xiu. He handed the pure gold armor over. Chu Liyue carefully took it and looked around carefully. She realized that the broken part on it had really been repaired. She looked up at the man in black in front of her and said gratefully, "Thank you, big master." As soon as she said that, she heard a voice behind her. In this world, there are very few people who can completely repair such a yuan instrument. Since we've met, why don't you take off your mask and show your true face? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 8:13. It was Dugu Mabao's voice. As his voice fell, the surroundings fell silent for a moment. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat and she couldn't help but glance at him. It was impossible for her not to be curious. However, based on this first master's temperament, she was afraid that he wouldn't agree. If he was willing to reveal his true appearance, he wouldn't have worn a mask when he came. Indeed, just as this thought flashed through her mind, she heard the first master say with a faint smile, "It's precisely because not many people can do it that we have to be even more careful, isn't it?" Dugu Mabao sneered. "Could it be that you're so determined to reject it because you're guilty?" Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Was he trying to shift all his anger onto him? 99% of those who don't want to reveal their true appearance are ugly. Lan Xiao interjected calmly. "You, Earl, that person can't be trusted. Come over quickly." Chu Luiwei was speechless. Why did she seem to have become one of them for no reason? She coughed and explained, "Seniors, I recognize this person. Seniors, I recognize this great master. He has helped me several times before. Seniors, you don't have to be too worried." If this man was plotting something against her, he was too patient to have laid the groundwork for such a long time. Lan Xiao choked. Seeing how Chu Luiwei trusted Rong Xiu completely, he couldn't help but scold in a low voice, "Sly. Rong Xiu was wearing a mask and refused to reveal his true appearance to you." They thought that he didn't have much contact with her. Who knew that he had already made his move? From this, it seemed that he had helped her a lot with this identity. Anyone could see that his so-called help was obviously to win the lass's trust. This way, even if he didn't reveal his true appearance, the girl would still trust him completely. How shameless! Chu Luiwei actually wanted to see how this first master looked like. However, if these people couldn't persuade him, she naturally couldn't. All of the people present were stronger than her, and she was the weakest among them. How could she have the right to speak? Chu Luiwei saw that the atmosphere was a little stiff, so he decided to change the topic. "How should I address you all?" Lan Xiao pointed at himself. Tell me who you are first. We will naturally say who we are." Dugu Mabao suddenly spoke and interrupted Lan Xiao. Lan Xiao looked at him strangely. Didn't Rong Xiu say that the girl still remembered him? Why was he still asking? Diwu Zhangzi gave Lan Xiao a look. Dabao wasn't asking for an answer. He was clearly asking for the girl's attitude. If she admitted it, it would prove that she trusted them. If you don't admit it, then there would be a lot of trouble today. Lan Xiao then understood. He calculated in his heart and instantly felt that this question was very necessary. Thus, the three of them looked at Chu Luiwei and waited for her answer. Chu Luiwei's eyebrows twitched. It seemed that these people were clearly planning to get an answer from her. She pursed her lips and fell into deep thought. She really didn't remember knowing these people. It was really too difficult for her to admit her identity to a few strangers. After all, she didn't even reveal anything to Yuchi Song and the rest. That was the biggest secret she was hiding. But she remembered very clearly that when she heard their voices for the first time, she did feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Even when they called her girl, she didn't feel the slightest bit out of place. It seemed like it should be like that. Moreover, her intuition told her that these people wouldn't harm her. To her, this feeling definitely wouldn't arise for no reason. So there really is something going on. However, with this big master beside her, it was really hard to say. After waiting for a while, Chu Luiwei still didn't say anything. Dugu Mabao's face gradually turned cold. The aura around him quickly turned cold as if the surrounding air was going to freeze. Then he actually turned around and left. Lan Xiao and Diwu Zhangzi were both shocked. "Why are you leaving all of a sudden?" Dugu Mabao said coldly. "Why are you staying here if you don't leave?" Looking at that girl, it was obvious that she didn't trust them. Thinking about how he rushed over in a hurry, Dugu Mabao was even angrier. He shouldn't have come. Diwu Zhangzi chased after him and said in a voice that only the few of them could hear, "Aya, it's not like you don't know her." She forgot. She had forgotten all of them. Wasn't it normal that she didn't trust them now? Didn't they see that she didn't even recognize Rong Xiu? Lan Xiao couldn't help but say, "That's right, why are you angry with her? You've waited for so many years and finally met her. Why do you have to make such a fuss? If you want to leave, leave by yourself." "I'm not leaving." Who knew what Rong Xiu was planning to do if he was leaving? Upon hearing that, Dugu Mabao walked even faster. Seeing that his figure was about to disappear into the darkness, Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, and she suddenly blurted out, "Debao. Stop fooling around." Duga Mabao suddenly stopped in his tracks. Lan Xiao and Diwu Zhangze widened their eyes in shock. Rong Xiu's gaze moved slightly. The entire space was dead silent. Chu Liyue was dumbfounded after shouting that. What did she just say? She called him Debao and told him to stop fooling around? Chu Liyue's vision went dark. She didn't even know how she managed to yell that out. She just blurted it out naturally after seeing that scene. Any one of these people who stood up would probably be a big shot who could summon the wind and summon the rain. Not only did she not answer the other party's question directly, she even used such a tone to speak to them like this. Chu Liyue felt a chill on her neck. Although she had always been bold and unbridled, she still knew her place. She knew very well who she could offend and who she couldn't. If she shouted that out, based on the other party's bad temper, how would he deal with her? Just as Chu Liyue was feeling uneasy, Duga Mabao turned around. That adorable little face was filled with astonishment and ecstasy. Ecstasy? Chu Liyue closed her eyes hard and looked over again. Could it be that she saw wrongly because of the distance? Who would have such a reaction after being shouted at like that? Duga Mabao couldn't help but ask, "What did you just say?" Chu Liyue tried her best to make her smile look sincere. I don't." Before she could finish speaking, she saw that Duga Mabao's eyes were actually red. His eyes were flickering and he actually looked like he was crying. Chu Liyue was dumbfounded. What was going on? Before she could figure it out, Duga Mabao wiped his tears and said stubbornly, "At least you have a conscience." Chu Liyue was speechless. Digression, it was so stuffy that she couldn't breathe. Continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 8:14. Chu Liyue didn't understand. She really didn't understand. Since when did the world become like this? She had been speaking nicely just now, but the other party was indifferent. When she accidentally flipped out, the other party felt that it was especially good. Although it wasn't appropriate to describe him as crying tears of joy, Chu Liyue's mind was blank now, and she couldn't think of any other words. That? She spoke hesitantly, not knowing what to say for a moment. Daoist didn't sound like a big name. When that young man called him that just now, his expression didn't seem very good. But why did he seem very happy when she called him that? What about me? What about me? Girl, there's still me. Before Chu Liyue could say anything, Fu Zhangze, who was at the side, immediately reacted and shouted with anticipation. Since the girl called him Dabao, she would definitely be able to call out their titles too. Although she had forgotten all of them, some things had already become instinctive and wouldn't disappear just like that. Lan Xiao glanced at him with an unhappy expression and snorted. Children who know how to cause trouble get sweets. If it were any other time, Duga Mabao would definitely fight with Lan Xiao after hearing this. But he was in a good mood now and couldn't be bothered to argue with Lan Xiao. He didn't even look at Lan Xiao and replied confidently, "Cause trouble. Go ahead, who's stopping you? See if the girl called you or not." Lan Xiao gritted his teeth and controlled his expression with great difficulty. "I'm not going to argue with a kid." This face was his favorite recently, and he couldn't ruin it casually. Not worth it, really not worth it? Duga Mabao couldn't be bothered to be angry with Lan Xiao now. His heart was filled with pride and joy now. Although he was already trying his best to control it, a smile still appeared from the corner of his eyes. Faced with Diwu Zhangze's passionate question, Chu Liyue's eyelids twitched. "Xiao what? Bao?" She really didn't remember. God knows how she managed to say that out loud just now. Now, she could basically confirm that she did know these people before. However, it was still a mystery as to what their relationship was. The strength of these three people was tyrannical. Even if she was once at her peak, she was still not enough to look at in front of them. Logically speaking, she should be very respectful to these three people. But just now, she really blurted it out. How bold must she be to dare to do this? Diwu Zhangze waited for quite a while. Seeing that Chu Liyue still hadn't spoken, he began to feel a little anxious. "Lass, think about it again. It's me. My name has 4 words. He's Diwu Zhangzi. Dugu Mabao said directly. Diwu Zhangzi's expression froze, and the veins on his forehead throbbed. Dabeo, what are you doing? Can't you see that she can't think of anything? It's already not easy to remember me. Why do you guys have such high expectations? Besides, my name also has 4 characters. If she could really remember your name, would she still need to remind her? Dugu Mabao pointed at Lan Xiao. I'm Lan Xiao. Lan Xiao was very straightforward. He directly reported his name and rolled his eyes at Dugu Mabao. Chu Luiwei was a little embarrassed. Now, among these 3 people, she only didn't know Dabeo's name. She quickly searched in her mind. There didn't seem to be any powerful people with these names in the Tianling dynasty. From their appearance, there didn't seem to be anyone who matched these people. Then, these people were either hidden powerful people or not from the Tianling dynasty. She politely bowed to them one by one. Lan Xiao sighed, a little disappointed. Looking at her like this, she really didn't remember much. Being able to shout out that sentence just now should be a pleasant surprise already. It's all because that little brat is the most troublesome. Now that she has lost her memory, she can still say this subconsciously. Diwu Zhangzi was interrupted, but he had always been a gentle person, so he didn't care about this. It's always good that this lass can remember a little. She'll definitely gradually remember in the future. Seeing that their attitudes had softened, Chu Liwei deliberated for a moment and asked, "Seniors, what's seniors? Just call us like you did before." Lan Xiao wasn't used to hearing her speak like this, so he waved his hand. "You used to call him Dabeo, call me Lan Xiao, and call him Diwu." Even though Chu Luiwei felt that it was strange, she could only go with the flow and obediently nod her head since the other party had said so. "You should be able to tell that I have indeed forgotten some things. As for your identities and how we met, I also don't remember clearly." Chu Luiwei spoke very tactfully, but Lan Xiao and the others were all smart people. They immediately understood that she was inquiring about some things in the past. Lan Xiao had just raised his head when he felt a ray of light landing on him. He looked up and saw Rong Xiu looking at him with a heavy gaze. Lan Xiao suddenly remembered what Rong Xiu said before. "You, now doesn't remember anything outside of the Tianling dynasty." If he were to tell her rashly, it might affect her cognition and recovery instead. It's best to let nature take its course. Lan Zhao's Adam's apple bobbed. Although he had always disliked Rong Xiu, he agreed with what he said. After all, it was related to the lass, so he had to be extra careful. Thinking of this, he changed the topic. "We are all idle people, and our identities aren't important. However, we met in Dahuang Swamp previously." Chu Luiwei widened her eyes slightly in surprise. In Dahuang Swamp? She had come to Dahuang Swamp many times, but she didn't have any impression of these people. However, thinking about it carefully, she had always thought that her memory was complete. If it weren't for these successive events that continuously confirmed that she had indeed lost a part of her memory, she probably wouldn't have believed all of this. Then, her past with these people should also have been lost in that part of her memory. Seeing Chu Liuyue's surprised and curious expression, Diwu Zhangzi couldn't help but remind her. "It's in the Red Moon Desert. You used to love going there the most. You often stayed there for a long time." Red Moon Desert. Chu Luiwei blinked. In her impression, the Red Moon Desert seemed to be the place she went the least. However, they said that it was her favorite place to go. Then, Chu Luiwei wanted to ask more in detail, but Dugu Mabao suddenly looked up. "It's almost time." Lan Xiao and Diwu Zhangzi's expressions changed simultaneously. "Why so fast?" Lan Xiao frowned. "How long have they been here? They haven't even exchanged a few words with the lass, and they're leaving already?" Once he left, he would have to wait for another month. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but ask, "What time?" Diwu Zhangzi naturally answered, "It's the time we should go back." "Go back? Go back to the Red Moon Desert?" Chu Luiwei didn't ask, but she inexplicably thought of this answer in her heart. She paused. How did she know all of this? Digression. Dear friends, when I was cooking at noon, I accidentally poured boiling water on my left hand. Then all 3 of my fingers were basically scalded. My thumb and index finger are fine. After applying ice for a few hours, it still hurts a lot. Basically, I still have to apply ice every half a minute. Fortunately, although it's red and swollen, the blisters aren't too serious. Currently, the situation is slightly better. When it's a little later, I'll try my best to continue. If not, I'll put it on the account first and make up for it when my hand recovers. Also, I should try my best to do it at 12 o'clock tomorrow. Finally, thank you for understanding mobile users. Please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 8:15. Girl, do you want to go back with us? Lan Xiao asked. Since they couldn't stay outside, it would be better to let the girl go with them. Chu Luiwei was stunned. Go to the Red Moon Desert with them? She was actually a little curious, but they should still be waiting for her outside in Changwonzhou. She had been down there for so long, so she didn't know how they were doing now. At this moment, Rong Xiu suddenly spoke. When I came, I saw a dancing lotus at Mirror Lake. Dancing lotus? Chu Luiwei was pleasantly surprised. This was a rare heavenly treasure. Even she couldn't help but be tempted. Lan Xiao couldn't help but curse. How shameless. You know that the girl likes these things, so you purposely seduced her. Diwu Zhangzi shook his head. Sigh, it's a pity that no herbs grow well in the Red Moon Desert. If she wants other things, that's fine. We'll be able to scrape together what we can get. But these herbs, isn't this all because of your sins in the early years? Don't you know why the Red Moon Desert became like this? Dugamabao glanced coldly at the 2 of them. Lan Xiao touched his chin. Don't say it as if it has nothing to do with you. You were the one who caused the most trouble back then. How dare he talk about them like this now? Dugamabao choked and was speechless. Forget it. Didn't you see that the girl's eyes lit up when she heard about the dancing lotus? Let her go. Diwu Zhangzi was open-minded. We can just ask her to look for us after she retrieves that thing. Dugamabao and Lan Xiao thought about it and felt that this suggestion was not bad, so they agreed. Thus, they didn't even ask and directly said, then come back after you're done at Mirror Lake. We're all waiting for you. Chu Luiwei was speechless. She didn't seem to have agreed to go yet, but it seemed like she couldn't reject them. Chu Luiwei finally nodded. Only then did a satisfied expression appear on their faces. Lan Xiao glanced at Rong Xiu and said meaningfully, don't worry. Lass, some people look like decent people, but in reality, they're full of evil tricks. You must be careful and not be deceived by some people. Chu Luiwei silently lowered his eyes. Was he talking about the first master? Although she also felt that this person wasn't simple, she didn't want to say that to his face. It could only be said that having strength meant having confidence. If it was the current her, she really couldn't afford to offend any of them. So we have to survive between the 2 sides. Rong Xiu was not angry when he heard this. These few people had always doted on you, very much. Now that they knew that she had experienced so much, they would definitely be very distressed. This kind of attitude was probably due to the fact that she was still present. However, just as this thought flashed through his mind, Dugamabao looked over. Keep up. Rong Xiu's brows twitched. As expected, he couldn't be too merciful to these people. How could he forget that they had never given him any leeway? Chu Luiwei looked at the first master, then at Dugamabao and the rest. She narrowed her eyes. You guys know each other? At first she couldn't tell, but after going back and forth, she really didn't hear that they were strangers. After she said that, both parties fell silent for a moment. No one denied it. Chu Luiwei's mood suddenly became very strange. Since they knew each other, why did Dabeo deliberately ask the first master to remove his mask so politely at the start? She faintly felt that there was a secret hidden in this. Thinking about it carefully, those words should have been said to her? Then, was it also because of her that the first master refused to remove his mask? A white light suddenly flashed in Chu Luiwei's mind. She suddenly realized something. She looked at the first master and stared at him. Could it be that she recognized the face under the mask? Chu Luiwei's heart suddenly started beating faster, and that familiar feeling became stronger. Rong Xiu's gaze turned slightly, avoiding her gaze, and walked towards Dugu Mabao and the rest. When they brushed past each other, Chu Lue suddenly reached out and grabbed his wrist. Rong Xiu avoided it silently. Chu Lue looked up and asked word by word, "What are you afraid of, First Master?" If he wasn't guilty and was afraid of being recognized, why would he hide like this? The man opposite her didn't seem to be nervous at all. He only smiled faintly and said, "I'm sorry, my wife's family is very strict. She doesn't like me touching other women." Chu Lue was suddenly stunned. She never thought that the other party would throw out such a sentence. This reason seemed ridiculous, but it didn't seem wrong. While she was still in a daze, Rong Xiu walked over. Dugu Mabao's face was cold and solemn. Lan Zhao's eyes were full of disdain, and he couldn't help but spit. "Madam? Isn't it just you, After not seeing him for a few years, this fellow's acting skills have improved. When the truth is revealed and you, knows his identity, let's see what will happen to him." Only Di Wuzhangzi gave him a thumbs up. Relying on the fact that you, didn't remember anything, Rong Xiu actually dared to lie to you, so brazenly now. His guts were truly extraordinary. Rong Xiu raised his brows slightly. "Everyone please." Dugu Mabao glanced at Chu Lue, who was standing far away. "I'll settle the score with this fellow when we get out. Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, the few of them quickly flew up. Chu Lue looked up. Suddenly her gaze froze. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat. She had seen the first master's back view before. The man in the octagonal pavilion by the cliff. Shi Ling. After Xiahou Tingan heard the news of Jiang Yuji and Xiahou Yushu's engagement, he dragged his injured body to the Xiahou residence. But after walking for a distance, his anger gradually subsided, and his mind calmed down. It was currently daytime, and there were many people on the streets. If he returned to the Xiahou residence like this, he definitely wouldn't be able to do anything. He might even become a laughingstock in the end. Hence, after much thought, he still went back in the end. Luckily, Xiao Dai was very obedient and didn't ask much as she took care of him wholeheartedly. A few days later, his injuries were mostly healed, and he decided to take action. He waited patiently until night fell. After Xiao Dai fell asleep, he quietly went out of the door. It was already late at night, and there was almost no one on the streets. Only a few of the houses were still lit up. Xiahou Tingan returned to the Xiahou residence's back door just like that. The back door wasn't guarded so strictly, so he easily drugged the two guards and secretly barged in. He was the most familiar with the Xiahou residence, so even at night, he still clearly knew every direction. Just like that, he successfully arrived at Xiahou Rong's study room without any obstructions. At this point, the study room was still lit up, and it was obvious that someone was inside. Xiahou Tingan held his breath and went closer. Just as he walked to the corner, he heard a scoff from inside. "If I knew that Jiang Yuqing was like this, I wouldn't have betrayed the princess back then. Digression, I'll probably end it here for today. My hand is already better, so everyone doesn't have to worry about kissing me. Tomorrow at 12 a.m., mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from AI Network." Chapter 816. Xiahou Tingan's heart skipped a beat. He vaguely knew that there was something fishy about the princess's death back then. If not, the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill wouldn't have landed in his father's hands. He wasn't dumb and knew what he could and couldn't ask. Hence, even if he had guessed it, he had never honestly told his father about it. Now that he suddenly heard these words, Xiahou Tingan's heart was still beating rapidly. For a moment, he wanted to retreat and didn't want to listen anymore. He knew that the more he knew about such things, the more dangerous it would be. But just as he was feeling conflicted, another voice came from the room. You should know what kind of person he is from the moment he planned to work with the third princess to deal with the princess." Xiahou Tingan knitted his brows. This voice sounds familiar. The princess took care of him many times back then. If it weren't for the princess, Jiang Yuqing would have died countless times. Such an ungrateful person, what wouldn't he do? But we're just taking what we need, so we don't have to be so calculative. Xiahou Rong said angrily. How can we not be calculative? This time, he took the opportunity of Jiang Yuji's wedding to get the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill back. From the beginning to the end, all my efforts were for naught. Back then, I agreed to work with Jiang Yuqing to get the 9 clouds yuan recovery pill. I didn't expect to lose both her and the pill. Who asked your second young master to create such a scene at Chunfeng restaurant? Let the Jiang family have the upper hand? If this didn't happen, I could still fight with them. But now I can only give in. Hearing them mention him, Xiahou Tingan instantly tensed up. Then he heard Xiahou Rong sigh and say, Among my sons, I've always liked him the most. Among my sons, I've always liked him the most. Later on, when I found out that Jiang Yuji liked him, I poured a lot of effort into him. Originally, I thought that after their wedding he would naturally inherit my position. Who would have thought that he would actually be so disappointing? Xiahou Rong expected better from him. After knowing that Xiahou Tingan had a girl at Chunfeng restaurant, he knew that he was in big trouble. Originally, he wanted Xiahou Tingan to go to the Jiang residence personally to apologize, but he didn't know what was good for him and refused to do so. In the end, he was chased out of the Xiahou residence. Hearing this, Xiahou Tingan felt very upset. Just as he was hesitating whether to admit his mistake, he heard another man laugh. So what if I don't live up to expectations? Wasn't there still third young master? In my opinion, he is much more mature than your second young master. From the beginning to the end of his marriage with Jiang Yuji, he had performed extremely well. It was said that he had been going to the Jiang residence to accompany Jiang Yuji every day for the past few days, and their relationship had developed quite well. Xiahou Rong smiled. You're right. In the past, because of his mother's lowly birth, I never paid much attention to him. He had been keeping a low profile all these years. I didn't expect him to be so capable. Compared to his second brother, he was much better. After this, second brother would probably be crippled. It would be good to let him wake up on his own. Xiahou Tingan was dazed. He didn't hear what they said after that. His mind was filled with Xiahou Rong's words. It had only been a few days, and Xiahou Yushu, that bastard, had already completely occupied his position. The last bit of hesitation in Xiahou Tingan's heart completely disappeared. Now that Jiang Yuqing has the upper hand in Xiling, it's not wise to fight with him anymore. That man persuaded. Xiahou Rong sneered. If you force me into a corner, I'll just reveal everything that happened back then. If I didn't help to forge the document, how could the princess have moved the 13 Yu-guards out of Xiling back then? As long as the 13 Yu-guards were around, Jiang Yuqing couldn't have succeeded. If he keeps forcing me, don't blame me for fighting to the death with him. Xiahou Tingan pressed his chest as his heart beat crazily, and his eyes were filled with shock. I see. When the princess got into trouble back then, the 13 Yu-guards were indeed not in Xiling. Everyone only knew that something happened at the border, so the princess sent the 13 Yu-guards to investigate, but they never returned. Not long after, Jiang Yuqing directly announced that the 13 Yu-guards had betrayed their master and ordered them to be killed. Other than the most important few people, nobody knew why the princess sent all 13 of them out back then. According to her past habits, she would usually send a few people out and leave someone beside her. I didn't expect my father to be the one behind this. The current Jiang Yuqing can't be compared to the past. Even if you say those things now, who would believe it? The princess's death is linked, and you and I are just one of the links. Once he said that, the two people in the room didn't speak for a long time. After some time, that man seemed to be planning to leave. Forget it. Don't mention this in the future, lest you attract more trouble. Before he could finish speaking, a strange sound came from the yard. Who is it? Xiahou Rong hollered in the room. He immediately rushed out of the room. Xiahou Tingan's heart was about to jump out of his throat. But then he realized that the sound came from another direction. The moment Xiahou Rong came out, he saw a black figure flash past quickly. He cursed in his heart and immediately chased after it. Previously, he specially asked the servants to leave and ordered that nobody could enter this place. In addition, he was filled with anger whenever he talked about Jiang Yuqing, which caused them to be careless and not even know that someone secretly came here. I don't know how much of what I just said was heard. Thinking of this, Xiahou Rong became even more nervous, and his heart burned. If someone finds out and spreads it, the consequences will be unimaginable. The person in the room also followed closely behind Xiahou Rong and left. However, he didn't chase after Xiahou Rong. Instead, he changed directions and left this place with a few leaps. Xiahou Tingan originally wanted to see who that person was, but he was worried that his identity would be exposed, so he didn't dare to move. Hence, he only saw that person's blurry back view in the dark. He thought for a while and didn't recognize that person's identity. But very quickly, he threw this matter to the back of his mind. This was because the study room was currently empty. It was a good chance to take action. Before Xiahou Rong left, he set up a barrier here. However, this wasn't a problem for Xiahou Tingan. As he was doted on since he was young, Xiahou Tingan always carried the seal that could break Xiahou Rong's barrier. He took out the seal, and a faint light flashed across. Then, a wave-like barrier appeared in front of him. He injected his force into the seal and stuck it on the barrier. An opening instantly appeared. He stepped in. At this point, he didn't know that there was a figure following behind him like a shadow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 8:17. Xiahou Tingan silently entered the study. As Xiahou Rong had previously ordered that nobody was allowed to enter this yard without permission, this place was quiet, and there was no one else. Even if he discovered that someone had secretly barged in, Xiahou Rong didn't dare to make a sound. He just ran out himself and wanted to catch that person personally. But isn't it because he's guilty and worried that that person will really hear something and spread the news? Hence, the entire Xiahou residence was still silent, and this matter didn't cause any commotion. This was Xiahou Rong's study. Not to mention ordinary people, even the young masters and young mistresses in the residence didn't dare to casually enter. But Xiahou Tingan was different. He was groomed as Xiahou Rong's successor, and he frequently entered this place, especially in the past 2 years. Hence, he was very familiar with everything here. He walked in and went straight to the table. There weren't many things on the table, and he roughly scanned through them. When he saw the pen rack, his eyes lit up. Then he carefully moved the pen rack away bit by bit. A hidden compartment suddenly popped out from under the table. A bronze-colored key was placed in the middle of it. Xiahou Tingan took out the key and turned around to walk to the small couch. That was where Xiahou Rong usually rested when he was tired from reading. Walking to the side of the small couch, Xiahou Tingan's hand rubbed the side for a while, and he heard a kacha sound. The head of the small couch suddenly split open from the middle. Another hidden compartment popped out. A palm-sized black lacquered wooden box was quietly placed in the secret compartment. At first glance, this black wooden box looked very normal, but if one looked closely, they could see that it was covered with a layer of extremely faint silver light patterns. Xiahou Tingan knew that the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill was placed in the wooden box. The layer of silver light patterns on the outside was the barrier that this black wooden box carried. He had previously heard his father mention that this 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill was the only 9th grade pill passed down from Taizu, and it was very precious. As for this black wooden box, it was personally created by the great ancestor. Even the barrier on it was personally set up by him. After thousands of years of inheritance, this barrier might have loosened, but every emperor would strengthen it. Hence, this seal was still very strong until today. It was precisely because of this that the black wooden box had an extremely dense aura, and it was extremely easy for others to find it. Hence, Xiahou Tingan came here today to directly take away the pills inside. Naturally, he couldn't deal with this barrier with his own strength alone. But he had the key. Most importantly, there was a drop of Empress Concubine's blood on the key. Therefore, it was able to easily break through the barrier and open the door to this thing. Looking at the black wooden box in front of him, Xiahou Tingan swallowed his saliva with much difficulty. His throat was dry, and his eyes sparkled with excitement. He was so nervous that his hands were covered in sweat. He hurriedly wiped them on his body before holding the key and inserting it into the lock on the wooden box. Crack! With a crisp sound, the lock fell to the ground. Xiao Tingan held his breath and slowly opened the box. A red pill the size of a longan was quietly placed inside. On it, there were 9 clear golden lines. It was indeed the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. A strong fragrance wafted through the air. Xiao Tingan lightly took in a breath and immediately felt refreshed. Even the force in his body seemed to have become active. He was secretly shocked. A 9th grade pill indeed lives up to its name. If I really consume this pill, it'll definitely be easy to strengthen my bones and raise my cultivation. Xiao Tingan suppressed the agitation in his heart and stretched his hand toward the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. But at this moment, a cold wind suddenly blew over. Xiao Tingan only felt a black figure flash across his eyes, and the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill disappeared. He was shocked and immediately raised his head to look. A mysterious person in a long robe was holding the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill in his hands. The other party covered himself up so tightly that he couldn't even tell his gender, let alone his appearance and figure. Xiao Tingan was shocked and furious as he immediately pounced forward. However, the other party easily avoided his actions, kept the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill, and turned to leave without any reluctance. That person moved like a ghost, and Xiao Tingan didn't even see the other party's actions clearly before he disappeared. Seeing that the person ran away, Xiao Tingan didn't dare to shout and hurriedly chased after him. But once he rushed to the door, he realized that the night sky outside was pitch black, and he couldn't see any traces of that person at all. Everything happened too quickly, and Xiao Tingan felt that he was still immersed in the excitement and joy of obtaining the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill a second ago. The next second, he was killed halfway, and everything was gone. Even if he wanted to chase after him, he didn't know where to go. Xiao Tingan's heart was filled with hatred and anger as he clenched his fists tightly, making cracking sounds. He spent so much effort and went through so much trouble to come here and find the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill, but he didn't expect it to be snatched away so easily. His anger was stuck in his chest, and it was so stifling that it was about to explode. Xiao Tingan originally wanted to leave just like that, but he remembered that he hadn't cleaned up the mess yet, so he could only accept his fate and return. Looking at the empty black wooden box, Xiao Tingan even wanted to die. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that he would be plotted against. That person clearly followed him here. If not, they definitely wouldn't be able to enter through the barrier outside. The other party was waiting for him to find the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill before taking the chance to take action. Xiao Tingan closed the wooden box again and locked it. He didn't know if it was his imagination, but he felt that the silver light pattern on the black wooden box seemed to have become much fainter without the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. But this had nothing to do with him anymore. Xiao Tingan placed the key back and restored everything to its original state before leaving unwillingly. Luckily, his journey back was very smooth, and he wasn't discovered by anyone. When he came, he was excited and nervous, but when he left, he was defeated and resentful. Xiao Tingan became suspicious and checked the surroundings every few steps, afraid that someone was still following him. Even though he knew that the other party definitely wouldn't follow him after obtaining the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill. But the trauma in his heart couldn't be removed. When he returned to his residence, Xiao Dai was still sleeping soundly on the bed. But Xiao Tingan's eyes were wide open, and he didn't sleep for the entire night. The disappearance of the 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill would be exposed sooner or later. By then, I would definitely be listed as one of the suspects. I originally wanted to use this 9 Clouds Yuan recovery pill to raise my Yuan meridian level and abilities. This way, even if my father was angry, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Everything would fall into place. But now, that item was snatched away by a third person. If they found out that I was involved, I definitely wouldn't be able to avoid a basin of dirty water. Xiao Tingan thought for a long time. If it really doesn't work, I'll use the truth of the princess's death as a threat. Digression, my hand is much better. I'll continue updating at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 8:18. Lass, are you coming back with us? Lan Xiao asked. They couldn't stay outside, so they could just let the lass go with them. Chu Luiwei was stunned. Go to the Red Moon Desert with them? She was actually a little curious, but Chang Wanzhou and the rest should still be waiting for her outside. She had been down there for so long, so she didn't know how they were doing. At this moment, Rong Xiu suddenly spoke up. When I came, I saw a whirling lotus by the mirror lake. Whirling lotus? Chu Luiwei was pleasantly surprised. This was a rare heavenly treasure. Even she couldn't help but be tempted. Lan Xiao couldn't help but curse. How shameless. You know that the lass likes these things, so you deliberately baited her. Diwu Changzi shook his head. Sigh, it's a pity that no herbs can grow well in the Red Moon Desert. If she wanted something else, it would be fine. The few of us would be able to get it by scraping together. But this herb, isn't this all because of the sins you committed in the past? Don't you have any idea why the Red Moon Desert became like this? Dugu Mabao glanced at the two of them coldly. Lan Xiao touched his chin. Don't say it as if it had nothing to do with you. You were the one who caused the most trouble back then. Now, he actually had the cheek to say that about them? Dugu Mabao choked and was speechless. Forget it, forget it. Didn't you see that the lass's eyes lit up when she heard about the whirling lotus? Let her go. Diwu Changzi was quite open-minded. Let's wait for her to get that thing, then let her find us. Dugu Mabao and Lan Xiao thought about it and felt that this suggestion was not bad, so they agreed. Therefore, they didn't even bother to ask and directly said, then come back after you're done at Mirror Lake. We're all waiting for you. Chu Luiwei, she didn't seem to have agreed to go yet. But looking at them, it seemed that it was not good to reject. Chu Luiwei finally nodded. Only then did the few of them look satisfied. Lan Xiao glanced at Rong Xiu and said meaningfully, Lass, some people look decent, but they're actually full of evil tricks. You must be more careful, don't be deceived by some people. Chu Luiwei lowered her eyes silently. Was he talking about the first master? Although she also felt that this person was not simple, but to say this in front of him, it could only be said that having strength meant having confidence. If it was the current her, she really couldn't afford to offend either of them. Thus, she could only survive between the cracks of both sides. Rong Xiu was not angry when he heard this. These few had always doted on you. Now that they knew that she had experienced so much, their hearts would definitely ache. His attitude was probably due to the fact that she was still present. However, just as this thought flashed through his mind, Dugu Mabao looked over. Follow me. Rong Xiu's brows twitched. Indeed, he could not imagine these few people to be too kind. How could he have forgotten that they had never given him any leeway? Chu Luiwei looked at the first master, then at Dugu Mabao and the others, and narrowed her eyes. You know each other? She could not tell at first, but from the way they talked, their tone did not sound like they were strangers. As soon as he said that, both parties fell silent for a moment. No one denied it. Chu Luiwei's mood immediately became very complicated. Since they knew each other, why had Debao deliberately asked the first master to take off his mask so politely? She vaguely felt that there seemed to be some secret hidden in this. Thinking about it carefully, those words should have been meant for her to hear? In that case, the first master was also unwilling to take off his mask because of her? A white light suddenly flashed through Chu Luiwei's mind. She suddenly realized something and looked at the first master, her eyes fixed on him. Could it be that she recognized the face under the mask? Chu Luiwei's heart suddenly started beating rapidly. That familiar feeling grew stronger. Rong Xiu's gaze shifted slightly, avoiding her gaze. He walked towards Dugu Mabao and the others. When they brushed past each other, Chu Luiwei suddenly reached out and grabbed his wrist. Rong Xiu quietly avoided it. Chu Luiwei looked up and asked word by word, what is the first master afraid of? If he was not guilty and afraid of being recognized, why would he hide like this? The man opposite her did not seem nervous at all. He only said with a faint smile, I'm sorry. My wife is very strict and doesn't like me touching other women. Chu Luiwei was suddenly stunned. She had never expected the other party to throw out such a sentence. This reason seemed ridiculous, but it also seemed like there was nothing wrong with it. While she was in a daze, Rong Xiu walked over. Duge Mabao's little face was cold. Lan Zhao's eyes were full of disdain and he could not help but spit. Isn't it just you? After not seeing him for a few years, this kid's acting skills have gotten better. When the truth is revealed and you knows his identity, let's see what will happen to him. Only Diwu Changzi gave him a thumbs up. Rong Xiu actually dared to lie to you so openly and brazenly just because the girl did not remember anything. He was really bold. Rong Xiu raised his brows slightly. Everyone please. Duge Mabao glanced at Chu Luiwei, who was standing in the distance. I'll settle the score with this kid when we get out. Let's go. As soon as he said that, the few of them quickly flew up. Chu Luiwei looked up. Suddenly her gaze froze. Her heart skipped a beat. She had seen the back view of the great master before. The man in the octagonal pavilion by the cliff. West Hill. After Xiahou Tingan heard about the engagement between Jiang Yushi and Xiahou Yushu, he dragged his injured body to Xiahou's residence. But after walking for a distance, the anger in him gradually subsided and his mind calmed down. It was daytime and there were people walking to and fro on the streets. If he returned to Xiahou's residence like this, he would definitely not be able to do anything. He might even become a laughingstock in the end. So, after thinking about it, he decided to go back. Luckily, Xiao Dai was very obedient and didn't ask much, only doing her best to take care of him. After a few days, his injuries were mostly healed and he decided to take action. He waited patiently until nighttime. After Xiao Dai fell asleep, he quietly left the house. It was already late at night and there was almost no one on the streets. Only a few houses were still lit with a little light. Xiahou Tingan returned to the back door of Xiahou's residence like this. The security at the back door wasn't that strict, so he easily knocked out the 2 guards and snuck in. He was the most familiar with Xiahou's residence, so even at night, he knew every direction clearly. Just like this, he smoothly arrived at Xiahou Rong's study. At this time, the study was still lit, so there was obviously someone inside. Xiahou Tingan held his breath and approached. Just as he reached the corner of the wall, he heard a cold snort from inside. If I knew that Jiang Yucheng was like this, I wouldn't have betrayed the Empress concubine. Digression, this will probably be the end for today. My hand is already better, so everyone doesn't need to worry about kissing. Tomorrow, 12 a.m., mobile users please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please come to my website. Chapter 8:19. Shengguan Wan's expression froze for a moment. However, she quickly returned to normal. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly as she asked in a seemingly unintentional manner. She asked casually, "Lord Yuan, what do you mean?" Yuan Wei paused for a moment and explained, "You know this as well. You know this as well." Back then, the preparations for Her Highness the Empress Concubine's wedding were basically completed. Furthermore, everything was done according to the highest standards. Do you want to follow the same protocol as the Crown Princess, or the protocol for a princess? Although his words were very tactful, Shengguan Wan understood. Back then, Shengguan Yu didn't follow the usual protocol for a princess's wedding. Instead, it was a level higher. Without a doubt, it was because of her status as the Crown Princess. The Tianling dynasty had been passed down for thousands of years. When the successive emperors got married and ascended the throne, they would hold a grand ceremony. Generally speaking, regardless of whether it was a princess or a prince, the treatment for ascending the throne was the same. However, Shengguan Yu's wedding was even grander than before. This was because she was the second person in the entire Tianling royal family to have the Tianjing Yuan meridian after Taizu. And because of this, even though countless manpower and resources were spent on the preparations for that wedding, no one in the entire Tianling dynasty had any complaints or criticisms. In their opinion, this was what the crown princess deserved. And now, this person had changed to Shengguan Wan. Although Shangguan Wan was in power now, she hadn't reached the same level as the crown princess back then. Therefore, logically speaking, it should be carried out according to the protocol for a princess. However, Yuan Wei still asked out of caution to prevent any mistakes. Shangguan Wan sat on the seat of honor with her hands crossed in front of her. Although her expression was very calm, her hands were tightly clenched in her sleeves. In her opinion, this question was an insult to her. Since young, Shangguan Yu had been better than her in every aspect. From as small as a brush to as big as a palace. In every aspect, Shangguan Yu had always been better than her. Now that Shangguan Yu was finally dead, she had completely stepped on her bones. She had thought that she would be able to surpass Shangguan Yu forever, but she gradually realized that this was not the case. For example, the wedding ceremony. Of course, she wanted to follow the same standards as Shangguan Yu, but she couldn't do that, because she knew too well what kind of trouble such a choice would bring her. After a moment of silence, Shangguan Wan spoke. She tried to make her voice sound calm. How can this consort compare to eldest sister? Let's proceed according to the princess etiquette. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, but her eyes were cold. Yuan Wei nodded slightly. Yes. Everything is in accordance with His Highness's orders. Also, he paused and seemed to want to say something but hesitated. Shangguan Wan raised her eyebrows. Is there anything else, Lord Yuan? This humble subject does indeed have one more thing to ask Your Highness. It's about the things prepared for Her Highness the Crown Princess's wedding. Some of them have been dealt with, but there are still some that haven't been touched. For example, there are some treasures that were specially selected for the wedding. How do you plan to deal with them? Back then, Shangguan Yu's wedding was extremely luxurious and honorable. Every item used was a treasure that was carefully selected. Any one of them was extremely precious. From what Shangguan Wan knew, the red carpet they had prepared to welcome the bride was specially woven with the most luxurious ice gold velvet, with countless rubies embedded on it. It could be said that it was priceless and priceless. Just a red carpet was already so luxurious. There was no need to talk about the other items. They were all extremely honorable. Now, Yuan Wei was asking her if she wanted to use something like this. On one hand, the crown princess had an accident on the eve of the wedding, so these items weren't suitable to be used. But on the other hand, these items had all been prepared with a lot of money and manpower. If they were really covered in dust, it would be troublesome to prepare new ones. Shangguan Wan suppressed the anger in her heart, lowered her eyes, and sighed softly. After all, those are eldest sister's items. This consort will definitely feel sad when she sees them. There's no need to use them. Just keep those items properly. Yuan Wei's expression changed slightly. Actually, he originally thought that Shangguan Wan would be willing to use a portion of them. This wasn't entirely a matter of money and so on. When the Tianling royal family got married, there were actually many items that wouldn't be customized. Instead, they would use the previous items. On one hand, it was to show the inheritance of power. On the other hand, it was to show that they were connected by blood. However, he didn't expect that Shangguan Wan would refuse to use all of them. Your Highness, if we were to replace all of them, I'm afraid it would be a little rushed. This is something that Lord Yuan needs to deal with. Do you want this consort to personally worry about these issues? Shangguan Wan was already full of impatience, and her tone was a little cold. Yuan Wei understood and immediately said tactfully, Yes. Your Highness, please don't worry. This humble official will do his best. Shangguan Wan's anger subsided slightly, but there was still a hint of coldness in her eyes. If Your Highness doesn't have anything else to instruct, this humble official will take his leave first. Shangguan Wan waved her hand. Yuan Wei bowed, then retreated and walked out. Shangguan Wan's anger still hadn't subsided even after his figure completely disappeared outside the door. Yuan Wei's trip this time was simply to disgust her. She kept calling him Empress Concubine. He had already been dead for almost 2 years. What else was there to say? All right, don't think about those useless things. It's better to think of a way to recover your Yuan meridian as soon as possible. A hoarse and cold voice suddenly sounded in her mind. Shangguan Wan shuddered, and fear flashed across her eyes. If your Yuan meridian hasn't fully recovered before your wedding, I'm afraid you won't be able to raise that scepter in front of so many people, right? This sentence directly pierced Shangguan Wan's heart. All along, this had been her greatest worry. Senior is right. You were very afraid when I asked you to summon a few people into the palace previously. If you don't do anything now, there won't be time. Shangguan Wan also had a headache. But if I do it so openly, it will definitely arouse suspicion. She had only taken a portion of it from Yang Qin previously. After the matter was exposed, she was suspected for a long time and was even harshly reprimanded by Jiang Yuqing. She really didn't dare to do it now. That voice sneered. If you don't dare to call them over, why don't you go out and find them yourself? Go out? But don't worry, I will help you when the time comes. Yes. After Duga Mabao and the others left, Chu Luiwei looked at the black figure and sank into deep shock. She didn't recover for a long time. She had seen the first master before. She must have interacted with him before. Moreover, in that dreamlike illusion, his tone was so intimate and gentle. He called her you. An absurd guess suddenly rose in Chu Luiwei's heart. He is, digression, today at 4 p.m. As an injured person, Ben February finally had a legitimate reason to not update his novel. Sob. Will I start to recover tomorrow at 5 p.m. or noon? There are basically no blisters on my hands. Now, only patches of red spots are left. I should be fine soon. Love mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 8:20. Something seemed to be coming out from the bottom of her heart. That answer was within her reach, as if there was only a thin veil between them. As long as she pierced through it, she would know. At this moment, Chu Luiwei suddenly felt a sharp pain in her head. She cried out in pain and hugged her head. It was as if someone was crazily chopping at her head with an axe, trying to split her head open. The excruciating pain made Chu Luiwei clench her teeth as her body trembled slightly. After some time, the pain gradually disappeared. Chu Luiwei's forehead was covered in sweat, and her lips were pale. She was drenched in sweat as if she had just been scooped out of the water. She leaned against the stone wall at the side and rested for a while before she gradually recovered. She was clearly very close to that answer, but there seemed to be an invisible hand stopping her, not allowing her to take another step forward. Chu Luiwei let out a long breath and looked up at the darkness. There seemed to be waves in the depths of her eyes. The first master would definitely recognize her. It's also very likely that they were very close in the past. However, other than the scene on the cliff, she couldn't remember anything else. After standing in the same spot and thinking for a while, Chu Luiwei finally decided to put this matter aside. Not only master, but Dabao and the other two's identities were also a mystery. I'll ask them properly when I see them again. The most important thing now is to go out and find the dancing lotus. Just as this thought surfaced in Chu Luiwei's mind, she suddenly felt a wave coming from her dantian. She was slightly stunned and realized that the wave came from the heavenly square cauldron. It seems to be the two Tian baby? Chu Luiwei's heart moved, and she summoned the heavenly square cauldron. A small transparent square cauldron sat quietly on her palm. Two jade-green two Tian babies floated in it and gently swayed in one direction. Chu Luiwei squinted her eyes. Is it talking about the dancing lotus's location? Dumpling. With a command, a red color flashed across her eyes. Dumpling appeared in front of her. Chu Luiwei looked at its wings, and the wounds on them were almost healed. The divine beast's recovery ability was strong to begin with. In addition, Dumpling was a red-tailed red phoenix with an extremely strong bloodline. Naturally, it was needless to say. In addition, the two Tian baby had now submitted to Chu Luiwei. The power it had left behind would not cause any harm to Dumpling. On the contrary, it would be even more beneficial. As long as one did not look carefully, one would not be able to tell that he had been injured. Chu Luiwei felt slightly relieved. Hula, Dumpling spread its wings and Chu Luiyue jumped onto its back. Go! Chu Luiyue shouted. Dumpling let out a clear cry and flapped its wings. He leaped into the air. Screech! This clear sound of breaking through the clouds immediately attracted the attention of the few people waiting outside. The few of them seemed to have sensed it and looked up in unison. That already withered Wan Yeshan suddenly started to break inch by inch and silently turned into powder. It scattered with the wind. Qin Yi narrowed his eyes. Lei Laosi looked at his big brother excitedly, and when he saw his big brother's expression, he became even more agitated. Chang Wanzhou's eyes were fixed on her. His soft, short blonde hair covered most of his eyes, but there was a rare hint of nervousness on his handsome face. Mu Hongyu was originally cultivating, but when she heard the sound, she quickly opened her eyes. Song Song, who was beside her, already couldn't help but take 2 steps forward with respect in its eyes. Yi Ran acutely sensed the change in the surrounding atmosphere, and his eyes lit up as he asked Mu Hongyu softly, "Are you coming? Is Luyu coming out?" The moment he said that, a gigantic figure rapidly rushed out from below. The sharp sound of something breaking through the air was heard. A red tail swept across the sky like a fire. It was the red-tailed phoenix. Everyone looked over and saw a girl standing on the red-tailed phoenix's back. Her shoulders were straight as she stood against the wind, and her black hair fluttered in the wind. If it wasn't Chu Luiyue, who else could it be? After staying in the dark space for too long, she still wasn't used to it when she suddenly came out. Luckily, it was before dawn, and the blue sky revealed a faint light. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes and quickly saw the scene in front of her clearly. She scanned the area from the corner of her eyes and saw that the entire mystic forest below had withered. At a glance, it was silent and had a sinister aura. Not far from the gradually dissipating mother tree, there were a few people standing. Luyu! Mu Hongyu couldn't hold it in and shouted first. She kept waving at Chu Luiyue excitedly and joyfully. Luyu! We're here! Yi Ran was also so agitated that his face flushed red. It's really her. She really came out. After such a long wait, nobody knew what kind of torture they went through in their hearts. But it was worth it just for this moment. Chang Wanzhou pressed his lips together. Even though he didn't have much of an expression on his face, his amber-like eyes seemed to be twinkling with stars. I know. I've always known. She will definitely be safe and sound. Lei Laoxi's hanging heart finally relaxed as he waved his fists and laughed out loud. Ha! I knew it. I knew it. What kind of person is Her Highness? This isn't a problem at all. Qin Yi's lips curved up slightly as he stood with his hands behind his back and looked up at that girl. She was like a god of war that came back from hell as she exuded a valiant and cold aura from head to toe, making people subconsciously submit to her. Even if she was in a dangerous situation, she would definitely think of ways to solve all her difficulties and stand up again. This is the Her Highness we've been following. Seeing these few people, Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly felt warm. In an instant, all her limbs and bones seemed to be smooth. No matter what the situation is, there will always be people waiting for me relentlessly. Meeting the few people's expectant and joyful gazes, Chu Luiyue finally understood. Had never been alone in this battle. Dumpling, let's go down, said Chu Luiyue with a smile. Dumpling responded, flapped its wings, and swooped down toward the ground again. The strong aura of a legendary fiend instantly enveloped the entire space. Chu Luiyue leaped up and jumped down. Mu Hongyu and Yi Ran immediately rushed forward, but when they reached Chu Luiyue, they widened their eyes in disbelief and stared at her without blinking. Luyu? Luyu, it's really you? Chu Luiyue smiled brightly, and her eyes curved into crescents as she pinched the two people's faces. Of course, it's really me. Mu Hongyu was slightly better, but Yi Ran's eyes directly reddened. That's great. I thought. As he spoke, his voice already sounded like he was about to cry. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed up. Don't worry, I'm fine. Aren't I perfectly fine? She then looked up at the remaining 3 people. Countless emotions gathered in her heart, and in the end, they turned into one sentence. Thank you for being willing to wait for me. I'm back. A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 821. Qin Yi's and Lei Laoxi's expressions froze when they heard that. Only they knew the true meaning of this sentence. Not only was she Chu Luiwei, but she was also Shangguan Yu. This empire originally belonged to her, but it was snatched away by someone using despicable means. Now, she was finally back, and she was going to take back everything that she had lost. The woman in front of them was dressed normally, and her shoulders were thin. However, her pair of black jade-like eyes had a noble aura that looked down on the world. If it weren't for the fact that Mu Hongyu and the other two were still here, Lei Laoxi would have knelt down on one knee and greeted her. Her Highness is indeed still Her Highness. Our long wait wasn't in vain at all. Qin Yi glanced at him with a gentle gaze. We've been staying here for close to 2 years. Actually, even we didn't know if Her Highness was still alive or when she would return. From start to end, we relied on our stubbornness to persevere. Now, we can finally see the moon after parting the dark clouds. Not to mention Old Four, but even his heart was surging with emotions. Chang Wanzhou seemed to have sensed something and glanced over. For some reason, he felt that Qin Yi and Lei Laoxi treated Chu Luiwei differently. Even though he didn't know much about the ways of the world, he had the sharp instincts of a wild beast. If not for this, he wouldn't have been able to stay with them with such ease and wait for Chu Luiwei to come out together. He looked at Chu Luiwei and saw that her eyes were so deep that he couldn't see the bottom of them. It seemed like she was hiding a lot of secrets. Chang Wanzhou looked down. Since she doesn't want to say it now, I won't ask. There will come a day when she wants to say it, and she will naturally say it. Lu Yu, why were you trapped down there for so long? What exactly happened in between? How did you come out? After confirming that Chu Luiwei had returned safely, Mu Hongyu was completely relieved. The moment she relaxed, she couldn't help but ask a series of questions in one breath. Chu Luiwei was caught between laughter and tears. It's a long story. I'll tell you all about it when we get back. Yi Ranran exclaimed. Lu Yu, you seem to have broken through again? Chu Luiwei blinked. She had stayed in the two Tian babies' god's domain for more than a year. It would be strange if she hadn't made a breakthrough. Her current realm was already peak rank 5. He was only one step away from becoming a rank 6 warrior. In fact, she had already felt that she had touched that invisible barrier several times before. It was just that she didn't have the time to focus on breaking through, so she suppressed it. As long as she wanted to, she could actually step into the rank 6 warrior realm at any time. I was just lucky, Chu Luiwei explained simply. Yi Ranran's round little face was full of amazement. Master said that luck is also a part of strength. Lu Yu, when we return, the pavilion master, and all the other senior brothers and sisters will definitely be very proud of you. Chu Luiwei laughed and knocked her forehead lightly. Do you think I can't tell? Didn't you all make breakthroughs too? Yi Ranran rubbed her forehead and smiled embarrassedly. This is all thanks to Big Brother Qin and the rest for constantly urging us to cultivate and giving us a lot of pointers in between. Chu Luiwei's smile deepened as she looked at the Qin Yi duo with a teasing look in her eyes. Then, I really have to thank Big Brother Qin and Big Brother Lei. The two of them were very strong, especially Qin Yi, who was very smart. In the entire Tianling dynasty, countless people wanted to get a word of advice from him but couldn't. Now, it was convenient for Mu Hongyu and the rest. This would be extremely beneficial to their future cultivation. Song Tsong, who was in her arms, started twisting. Mu Hongyu changed her position and hugged it with difficulty. Song Tsong, you're getting heavier now. If this goes on, I won't be able to carry you. Where's that legendary fiend? Mu Hongyu inadvertently glanced and suddenly saw that the sky was empty. The white lion that had been occupying this place previously seemed to have disappeared. Once she said that, the others also recalled this incident. Chu Luiwei asked curiously, what about the legendary fiend? What legendary fiend? Mu Hongyu explained, it's a huge white lion. It's a huge white lion, but it looks dirty. It seems to have come from the Red Moon Desert. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat when he heard the first half of the sentence. A legendary fiend-level white lion? She recognized a powerful white lion, Xue Xue. However, she remembered that Xue Xue didn't seem to be a legendary fiend. It didn't seem like it came from the Red Moon Desert either. However, she still had doubts in her heart. Not long before you came out, it left and went missing. Qi Ni said lightly. Chu Liyue nodded thoughtfully and temporarily suppressed the doubts in her heart. She scanned her surroundings and asked thoughtfully, "Did the others leave already?" The moment she said that, the entire place fell silent for a moment. Qi Ni said lightly, "Shangguan Wan and the others thought that you were dead, so they quickly left with their men, leaving only the few of us here." Chu Liyue nodded. This is something that Shangguan Wan would do. Originally, senior brother Zhu Hong and the others wanted to stay and wait for you, but big brother Qin said that it was too dangerous here and persuaded them to go back. Mu Hongyu added. Chu Liyue chuckled. Their men were all injured back then, so of course, they had to go back quickly. After all, they're taught by Dragon Teeth Mountain, so there's nothing to criticize about their character. Yi Ran asked, "Alright, let's go back now then, Lui. Pavilion Master and Master must be anxious from waiting." Most of the people had already gone back, and only they were still waiting here. The key point was that they couldn't send any news back. I don't know how those people explained it to Pavilion Master and the others when they went back. Besides, even we weren't sure that Lu Yu could return safely. If Pavilion Master and the others really thought that something happened to Lu Yu, they would definitely be heartbroken. Qin Yi's eyes flickered. If I didn't remember wrongly, Yuqi Song should have come a while ago. It's a pity that Jiang Yuqing and the others were with him back then, so Qin Yi didn't let them in. However, Yuqi Song should be able to guess something. Chu Liyue shook her head lightly. No hurry. I have something else to do now. What? The few of them looked over with some doubts. Chu Liyue raised her hand and pointed in the direction of Mirror Lake. Retrieve the dancing lotus. A ray of white appeared at the edge of the blue sky. Then, a ray of light pierced through the thick clouds and shone out. The entire sky was gradually dyed orange-red. Finally, a bright red sun leaped out from the sea of clouds. In the Red Moon Desert, the chilly night air quickly dissipated, and under the sunlight, it gradually became boiling hot. A tall black figure was traversing through the golden desert. Behind him, there was a white lion that had already turned into an earthen yellow color. Digression. Last night, I was informed by the editor to change the story, which meant that all the physical contact and so on had to be changed. Hence, I took it out chapter by chapter and sent it to the editor. The editor then told me to change it, and I changed it before submitting it for review. Finally, I changed it to 1 p.m. yesterday, and I felt terrible. I changed about 7 to 8 chapters at the beginning, and I changed some paragraphs and sentences. Everyone make do with it. Ooh. At this moment, I'm so glad that Rong Xiu was locked up in the little black room for so long. Ooh. I'll continue at 6 p.m. Ooh. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 8:22. The master and servant walked forward. The sun was scorching, and the sand was boiling hot. However, Rong Xiu's footsteps were very stable and maintained the same speed. If someone was here and looked carefully, they would see that Rong Xiu's feet didn't touch the quicksand. With every step he took, there was half an inch of distance between his feet and the sand. It looked like he was walking in the desert, but he was actually walking in the air. He didn't leave any traces behind. Xue Xue followed behind and did the same. Looks like you didn't waste these few years. You've already cultivated your movement skills to such a level. Dugu Mabao's voice sounded as if it was right beside his ear. Rong Xiu smiled. Thank you for your praise, senior. Dugu Mabao snorted. They wanted to teach this kid a lesson, but they realized that their previous methods were no longer a threat to him. Rong Xiu was already very relaxed when dealing with all of this. However, no matter how they asked, Rong Xiu refused to reveal what happened to you, and insisted on waiting for her to tell them herself. But now, she didn't even remember who they were. What else could she say? Lan Xiao sighed and couldn't help but say, if only we could leave this godforsaken place. Why do we have to be entangled with this kid? Diwu Zhangzi said calmly. Stop daydreaming. Who's daydreaming? Lan Xiao retorted unhappily. If nothing happened to her and everything went smoothly, we might have been released by now. Who knew that so many things would happen in between? They had been waiting here for too long. It wasn't easy for them to meet a girl and see a glimmer of hope. It was obvious that they had to wait from the beginning again. There's no need to think about it now. She hasn't even broken through to become a stage 6 warrior. Diwu Zhangzi paused, and his tone became more serious. More importantly, she doesn't have the Tianjing Yuan meridian anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, the surroundings fell silent. Dugu Mabao and Lan Xiao were speechless. Because this was what they were most worried about. With their strength, even if they did not personally check Chu Liyue's pulse, they could still roughly determine her Yuan meridian level based on the flow of energy in her body. That was definitely the Daijing Yuan meridian and not the Tianjing Yuan meridian. Even if she doesn't have the Tianjing Yuan meridian now, she will definitely become a top expert in the world in the future. Dugu Mabao suddenly spoke, his tone firm. That was the confidence and pride that came from one's own strength. The few of us taught him together. No one can compete with him. If she forgets, we can just do it again. The West Hill. The Jiang mansion had been very lively recently. On the one hand, he had to prepare for the wedding of the eldest young master and the third princess. On the other hand, he had to prepare for the marriage between the fourth miss and the Xiaohou family. Everyone in the mansion, from top to bottom, started to get busy. But amidst this, Jiang Yuqing was exceptionally free. Most of the time, he stayed in his room to recuperate. Other than a few important matters that required his instructions, he left everything else to his subordinates. Early in the morning, Jiang Yuqing took his medicine, packed up, and planned to go out. But just as he walked to the door, he saw Sun Qi walking over with 3 people. Seeing the familiar face of the person at the front, Jiang Yuqing narrowed his eyes. Yuan Wei? He didn't need to think to know why he was here. Sun Qi went forward and bowed. Eldest young master, Lord Yuan is here. Jiang Yuqing and Yuan Wei greeted politely. Yuan Wei went straight to the point. Eldest young master, I'm here today to discuss some specific matters of the wedding. Jiang Yuqing smiled. Lord Yuan, thank you for making this trip. I'm sure you've already asked the third princess before this? Yuan Wei nodded. The third princess wants to follow the princess etiquette. As for the things to be used at the wedding, they will all be replaced with new ones. Jiang Yuqing frowned slightly. Replace everything with new ones? Is this what Her Highness wants? Yes. There's not much time left before the wedding. It shouldn't be too late to prepare everything again, right? There are clearly many things that are ready-made. Why don't you use them? Yuan Wei paused for a moment. I've already ordered people to rush it. Don't worry, it won't delay the wedding process. But Jiang Yuqing's expression still didn't improve. He didn't need to think to know why Shangguan Wan had made these requests. It was just that she didn't want to use the things that Shangguan Yu had prepared to use. Even if they hadn't gotten married yet, those things hadn't been used yet. Jiang Yuqing felt a sense of disgust in his heart. Shangguan Wan knew that this would make things very difficult for the people from the Ministry of Rites. It wasn't good for her reputation. But she still did it. Just to not use Shangguan Yu's things. Jiang Yuqing's expression became much fainter. Since time is so tight, then we'll simplify everything here. In any case, the residence has everything that needs to be prepared. When the time comes, we can just use it directly. As for the other things that need to be deleted, everything will be done according to the princess's etiquette. Lord Yuan is quite experienced in this, so I don't need to say anything more, right? Yuan Wei was stunned for a moment. Eldest young master means, I'll leave all these matters to you. I still have something important to do today, so I'll take my leave first. If you still have any questions, feel free to discuss it with my father. After saying that, Jiang Yuqing nodded and left. The remaining people all quieted down. No one expected that Jiang Yuqing would leave in such a hurry. They were here to discuss the wedding matters with him. Did he just push everything away so cleanly and neatly? What was he going to do that was more important than the wedding with the third princess? Sun Qi glanced in the direction that Jiang Yuqing left and sighed in his heart. For some reason, eldest young master's mood had been very bad recently. Even he didn't dare to touch his bad luck. He could only carefully do his own things and didn't dare to ask anything else. He cupped his hands at Yuan Wei. Lord Yuan, I'll bring you to see Master? No matter what, Master's identity was still here, so it wasn't too rude. Yuan Wei came back to his senses, smiled, and said politely, that won't be necessary. We've already understood eldest young master's intentions, so we won't disturb Lord Jiang. Sun Qi didn't dare to say anything else and respectfully sent them out. After leaving the Jiang residence, a young man behind Yuan Wei finally couldn't help but say, what does eldest young master Jiang mean? Why does he seem to not care about the wedding at all? Yuan Wei pondered for a moment. There's no need to care about this kind of thing. Just do as he says. The two of them replied in unison, yes. Yuan Wei turned his head and looked meaningfully at the Jiang residence. It seemed that this eldest young master Jiang did not care about the third princess as much as he seemed to care about her. Oh, the best reading experience came from Love Network. Chapter 8:23. Jiang Yuqing meant that everything here was still the same as before. The so-called before was naturally the things that he and the Empress concubine were about to get married. Moreover, because the Empress concubine's wedding was of a higher level, he had to take away a lot of things to be considered a princess's etiquette. The third princess meant that she didn't want to use Her Highness the Empress concubine's things to avoid evoking memories of the past. He had clearly conveyed this meaning to Jiang Yuqing, but Jiang Yuqing still made this decision. On the bright side, he was pressed for time and was trying to reduce the pressure on everyone. On the other hand, he was simply ignoring the third princess's feelings. If Jiang Yuqing really had feelings for the third princess, he definitely wouldn't choose to do this. This wedding ceremony would also be the third princess's ascension ceremony. At that time, it would definitely be the center of attention. At that time, everything at the ceremony could become the talk of the entire Tianling dynasty. Therefore, everything had to be done with extreme caution. Logically speaking, Jiang Yuqing should be particularly concerned about these things. But he didn't expect his attitude to be so perfunctory. Thinking back, when he was preparing for the Empress concubine's wedding 2 years ago, everything in the Jiang residence was personally checked by Jiang Yuqing. Yuan Wei's expression changed and finally returned to calmness. He retracted his gaze and turned to leave with the two of them. Let's go. Our time is tight. Jiang Yuqing indeed didn't take the wedding to heart. He didn't even want to think about it. Because as long as he thought of this, he couldn't help but remember Shangguan Wan's scarred face and her resentful and sinister expression. Jiang Yuqing had long known what kind of personality she had, but she hadn't gone so far in the past, so he turned a blind eye and didn't fuss too much. But now, Shangguan Wan had become very sensitive and often lost her temper like a neurotic. Over and over again, the little bit of liking in his heart had long been wiped clean. If it weren't for, why would he choose to marry her? Jiang Yuqing's face grew colder and colder. He walked alone to a remote corner of the Jiang mansion. This was an abandoned courtyard. It looked cold and cheerless, and the weeds at the entrance had not been cleaned up. Jiang Yuqing didn't stop. He walked straight ahead and pushed open the door. Inside the door, there were 2 guards standing on either side. Seeing that the visitor was Jiang Yuqing, the two of them saluted together. Greetings, young master. Jiang Yuqing nodded. How has he been recently? One of them said respectfully, at first he was a little dishonest, but now he's obedient. Was eldest young master going to meet him personally? Hearing Jiang Yuqing's faint the guard hurriedly led the way. Young master, this way please. The two of them walked towards the room inside. If someone were to barge in at this moment, they would sense that there were several hidden auras in this seemingly desolate courtyard. Ordinary people could not easily break in, because this was actually the place where Jiang Yuqing locked people up. The people of the Jiang mansion also knew that this was Jiang Yuqing's territory and would never come here without permission. Jiang Yuqing followed the guard to one of the rooms. With a creak, the door was slowly opened. Jiang Yuqing walked in. The guard considerately closed the door again and waited quietly outside. This room was not big, and there was dust everywhere. It seemed that no one had been here for a long time. Jiang Yuqing didn't stop. He walked past the screen and entered the side room. This was a dim and narrow space. It couldn't even accommodate a person lying flat. And inside, there was a person sitting on his knees against the wall. All kinds of unpleasant smells mixed with the strong smell of blood rushed to his face. But Jiang Yuqing's expression didn't change. This kind of scene was too common for him. Hearing someone come, the man slowly raised his head. His originally sturdy body had become emaciated after a long period of torture. His cheeks and eye sockets were deeply sunken. Under his messy hair, one could see that he was missing an ear. There was a bowl-sized scar there. This person was Qi Dai, who was imprisoned by Jiang Yuqing that day. Seeing the person who came, Qi Dai's eyes moved, but the bottom of his eyes was scarlet. Jiang Yuqing looked at him condescendingly. How does it feel to be bitten by the messed yuan gravel? Qi Dai opened his mouth, as if wanting to say something, but only a hoarse and bitter moan came out. This was because he wanted to commit suicide. He tried to bite his tongue to commit suicide, but because he was discovered in time, he didn't die. But after that, his tongue was directly cut off, and he could no longer speak. He reached out as if wanting to grab Jiang Yuqing. But just as he moved, there was the sound of chains vibrating. It turned out that his 4 limbs had been locked by iron chains, and he had completely lost his freedom. His emaciated hands, which were as thin as skin and bones, clawed at the air. The veins on the back of his hands were bulging, and there were also shocking bloodstains. In the end, he still didn't catch anything, only empty air. Jiang Yuqing's voice was calm and cold. Don't worry, you can come out today. Chongshu Pavilion's pavilion master Wei Qi is looking for you. Qi Dai panicked, and deep despair appeared in his eyes. He desperately hid behind him. But this space was so narrow that his body couldn't even move, let alone escape. Jiang Yuqing raised his hand. A cloud of brownish-yellow powder spread out. Qi Dai gradually stopped struggling and fainted. Jiang Yuqing lowered his eyes and lifted his sleeves. On his arm, a scar stretched across, hideous and terrifying. The faint red line was almost invisible. This degree of scar could actually be repaired, but of course, he wouldn't do so. Then, Jiang Yuqing leaned over and checked the same position on Qi Dai's arm. Sure enough, a similar red line had already appeared. Jiang Yuqing's face revealed a trace of satisfaction. In order to complete the set, he had put in a lot of effort. He took a few steps back. Men, take him out. The atmosphere in Chongshu Pavilion had been very gloomy recently. Chu Luiwei and the others didn't return from the trip to Dahuang Swamp. The rumors in the outside world were very fierce. Even though most of them stayed on Qingyuan Mountain, they still heard all kinds of rumors. This couldn't help but worry them. If it weren't for Jian Fengqi's explanation and the pavilion master's good reaction, they would have rushed to Dahuang Swamp to look for him long ago. Waiting day after day made everyone very tormented. And this atmosphere was finally broken by Jiang Yuqing's arrival. When the news came, Yuqi Song was taking care of those herbs in the herb garden. Hearing that Jiang Yuqing had brought someone, Yuqi Song frowned and ordered someone to tell Jiang Yuqing to wait first. It wasn't until he had taken care of all the herb garden that he went to see Jiang Yuqing. Yuqi Song had just crossed the threshold with 1 foot when Jiang Yuqing, who had been waiting in the room for a long time, stood up and said, "Pavilion Master Yuqi, I've helped you find the person you wanted." Digression, there were a few pieces of skin on his hand, probably because of the burns, and they were about to fade. Overall, there were no major problems. The 5th update was about 7 o'clock. Sorry. Your wounded Feiyue is rushing to the front line with a stretcher. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 824. Yuchi Song turned his gaze and looked at the person kneeling behind Jiang Yuqing. This person was thin, and his aura was weak. It seemed that he had suffered a lot. Some old and new scars could be vaguely seen on his exposed wrists and other places. Yuchi Song frowned. This person's name is Qi Dai. He used to be my subordinate. He did go to Nanjiang with me. After receiving your commission, I checked all these people and finally found him. In order to make him tell the truth, I used a little punishment. Jiang Yuqing spoke casually. However, Yuchi Song only needed a glance to see that Qi Dai was already half dead. He probably wouldn't live for long. The so-called "a little" punishment was probably unworthy of the name. How did eldest young master find out it was him? Yuchi Song continued to ask. Naturally, I relied on evidence. Jiang Yuqing raised his chin as he spoke. To tell you the truth, ever since I brought them back from Nanjiang, most of them were more or less injured. So, I gave them a severance fee and let them go. This time, in order to help you find someone, we gathered them together again. And that day, I found that there was something wrong with this brother Qi. First, his realm had regressed a lot compared to before, and his strength was not as strong as before. Second, there was a mark left on his left arm. That was the evidence of the backlash from the Chaos Yuan gravel. Hearing this, Yuchi Song's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. The evidence is irrefutable. It's absolutely true. Speaking of this, Jiang Yuqing sighed, and a hint of disappointment appeared on his face. I didn't expect that it was really my people who did such a thing. They almost harmed the entire Chongshu Pavilion. Today, I personally brought Qi Dai here to give you an explanation and also to apologize to you in person. It's all because of my poor discipline that such a thing happened. My heart is filled with guilt. Jiang Yuqing's words were sincere and sincere. If someone else were to hear these words, they would definitely be moved. However, the Yuchi Song was an exception. He took 2 steps forward and carefully examined Qi Dai. At this moment, Qi Dai was kneeling on the ground with his hands tied behind his back. His eyes were lifeless as if his soul had been sucked out of his body. Even when Yuchi Song walked behind him to check his arm, he didn't move at all. It was as if he didn't care about anything. Yuchi Song asked casually, "Why does he look so strange?" Jiang Yuqing explained unhurriedly, "That's because he tried to escape and was captured. However, during the fight he was severely injured, especially his head. That's why he ended up like this." Yuchi Song sneered inwardly. This Jiang Yuqing could really lie without blushing. His ability to write, direct, and act was really strong. He just casually found a scapegoat and prepared all the evidence that he needed, making it difficult for others to deny it. It just so happened that this person was injured and couldn't argue for himself. In the end, of course, he could only accept whatever Jiang Yuqing said. In the end, Jiang Yuqing was fully prepared. That was why he dared to swagger in like this today. Yuchi Song glanced at Qi Dai and found that there was really a red mark on his arm. The other symptoms on his body were exactly the same as the backlash from the messed Yuan gravel. It could be seen that Jiang Yuqing had put in a lot of effort for this. Yuchi Song thought so in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. Jiang Yuqing was calm and composed. He wasn't worried in the slightest. He knew that these things could deceive ordinary people, but they might not be able to deceive an old fox like Yuchi Song. But so what? Now that all of this was in front of him, it was difficult for Yuchi Song to deny it. If he didn't believe it, how could he find evidence to prove that all of this had nothing to do with Qi Dai and that everything was done by him, Jiang Yuqing? Jiang Yuqing was certain that Yuchi Song couldn't do it. No matter what, this matter would only end this way. Yuchi Song glanced at Qi Dai without batting an eyelid, and his heart skipped a beat. Immediately, he straightened up and said in a deep voice, "He was indeed bitten by the messed Yuan gravel. There's no doubt that it should be him." As he spoke, he turned his head and looked at Jiang Yuqing. "Eldest young Master Jiang, have you asked him why he did this?" Jiang Yuqing was stunned for a moment and shook his head. Yuchi Song's expression tensed up a lot, as if he still couldn't let it go. This was normal. Qi Dai was an ordinary person to begin with. Why would he target Chongshu Pavilion for no reason? And the group of people who attacked Chongshu Pavilion clearly had an extraordinary background. There must be other people behind Qi Dai, Yuqi Song said in a deep voice. Jiang Yuqing's eyes twitched, but he still controlled his expression very well. I have the same thoughts as you, but this Qi Dai is very tight-lipped. No matter how we interrogate him, we can't get anything out of him. But no matter what, I'll hand him over to you first as an explanation. Yuqi Song's expression relaxed a little. Thank you for your help this time, eldest young Master Jiang. Then leave this person to Chongshu Pavilion. How about it? Of course. Jiang Yuqing cupped his hands. Although I don't know why Qi Dai is like this, he used to be my man. So I'm very sorry about this. Yuqi Song looked at his hypocritical appearance and felt even more disgusted. He turned around and hid the expression in his eyes. Eldest young Master Jiang, you don't have to be like this. He is him and you are you. If I was wrong before, it was all because I was anxious. Jiang Yuqing smiled. Pavilion Master Wei Qi is magnanimous. I should be the one apologizing to you. Yuqi Song didn't dwell on this for too long. Instead, he let out a long sigh. Actually, this kind of thing is hard to predict. For example, everyone always thought that the 13 Yu guards were loyal to the Empress concubine. Who would have thought? Oh right, didn't you issue a kill order previously, and there hasn't been any progress? Digression. Tomorrow at midnight, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 825. When he heard Yuqi Song mention the 13 Yu guards, Jiang Yuqing was stunned and subconsciously frowned. But it was only for a moment before his expression returned to normal. Not yet. Jiang Yuqing shook his head. As you know, the 13 Yu guards are all very powerful. It's extremely difficult to find them. At that time, they had used all their means to transfer the 13 Yu guards out of Xiling before they attacked Shanghai Yu. Actually, the 13 Yu guards had already sensed that something was wrong, so they had rushed back at full speed. But when they returned to Xiling, they saw a raging fire that had almost completely surrounded the Imperial Ancestral Hall. Not long after, the 13 Yu guards had all returned to Xiling. They were suspicious of Shanghai Yu's death and immediately wanted to investigate. The first to bear the brunt was Jiang Yuqing. Therefore, Jiang Yuqing made a prompt decision to counterattack. He directly announced to the public that the 13 Yu guards had colluded with the enemy and betrayed their master. That day, he directly issued the order to kill them. The 13 Yu guards were powerful. Any one of them was a top figure. But at that time, Xiling City was basically under Jiang Yuqing's control. He had the upper hand in all aspects. Most importantly, he also had the military power of the Black Cavalry in his hands. Under such circumstances, the 13 Yu guards were no match for Jiang Yuqing. So, they fled on their own and disappeared without a trace. Now that he thought about it, it had been almost 2 years. During this time, Jiang Yuqing had repeatedly ordered people to search for them, but there was no progress. He was very clear that the most likely reason why they could hide for so long was that they had already left the Tianling dynasty and gone outside Heaven's canopy. If that was the case, the chances of finding them would be even lower. Although he rarely mentioned it, Jiang Yuqing had always been worried that the 13 Yu guards were on the run. That was because these 13 Yu guards were very different from the other people who followed Shanghai Yu. They were only loyal to Shanghai Yu. They wouldn't even listen to the emperor's orders without the permission of Shangguan Yu. They only had the identity of a private guard, so they had nothing else to worry about. For the sake of Chu Luiwei, they could go against the heavens without any scruples. Others might be able to use power or benefits to restrain them, but these people were completely impossible. Why did Pavilion Master Wei Qi suddenly mention this? Could it be that there's some news? Jiang Yuqing asked tentatively. Yuqi Song shook his head. When I saw Qi Dai betray you, I felt something in my heart and suddenly thought of this matter. At that time, Qi Dai was able to follow you to the southern border. Presumably, he was highly regarded by you. Who would have thought that he would actually fall to such a state in the end? It can be seen that the human heart is unpredictable in this world. Sometimes, you trust him completely, but you don't know that he will backstab you. Jiang Yuqing's face stiffened for a moment. Pavilion Master Yuqi is right. This kind of person might be arrogant and proud after he succeeds, but one day, retribution will come sooner or later. Young Master Jiang, don't you think so? Jiang Yuqing's expression was somewhat difficult to maintain. Such words were too harsh to his ears. He carefully looked at Yuqi Song's face, and for a moment, even suspected that he was talking about himself. But Yuqi Song's expression was calm, and nothing could be seen. In the end, Jiang Yuqing felt embarrassed and took the initiative to take his leave. Since I've already brought him here, I'll leave the rest to you. I won't continue to disturb you. Yuqi Song didn't urge him to stay and let him leave just like that. After Jiang Yuqing left, Yuqi Song closed the door and walked to Qi Dai's side. With a flash of silver light in his hand, he cut the rope around Qi Dai's wrist. There were deep ligature marks on Qi Dai's wrist, but these superficial injuries were nothing to him now. Because the new injuries on his body overlapped with the old ones, there were countless of them. Now, he was basically half dead. Weiqi Song took his pulse, and his brows gradually furrowed. Qi Dai's physical condition was indeed very bad. Internally, he was suffering from the backlash of the Chaos Yuan gravel, and externally, he was suffering from all kinds of pain and suffering. He was only alive now because Jiang Yuqing deliberately let him hang on to his last breath, so that he could report back to Yuqi Song. In fact, Qi Dai wouldn't live for more than half a month in his current state. And in this half a month, he was unconscious and confused. No one could get half a word out of him. Yuqi Song took out a pill and fed it to him. Then he called 2 disciples and only said that this person's identity was very important and that they must take good care of him. Since the pavilion master had said so, the people below naturally did as they were told and carefully took Qi Dai away. Most of the disciples in Chongshu Pavilion were celestial physician, and they were best at this kind of thing. On the other side, Yuqi Song began to personally refine medicine for Qi Dai. Everyone was very surprised to see such a scene. This Qi Dai was brought here by Jiang Yuqing. They didn't know his identity, but he was already half dead. The pavilion master actually planned to spend so much effort to save him? Although they were curious, they still obeyed the pavilion master's orders obediently. Thus, Qi Dai settled down in Chongshu Pavilion just like that. After Jiang Yuqing left Chongshu Pavilion, he planned to return to the Jiang Mansion. After resolving the matter that had been hanging in his heart for many days, his mood was much better. Anyway, he had sent the person over, and the evidence was conclusive. There was no denying it. Yuqi Song had to believe it even if he didn't want to. Qi Dai was dying. Even if he could live for a few more days, his brain was already damaged and he couldn't get anything out of him. Even if Yuqi Song still had doubts about this matter, he had no reason or excuse to trouble him. After all these days, there was finally something comforting. Jiang Yuqing let out a long sigh. However, when he thought of Qi Dai, he couldn't help but think of Xia Mu from before. It was as if that person had suddenly disappeared without a trace. After such a long time, he still couldn't find him even after he had turned the entire West Hill upside down. It was as if everything that happened that day was just a dream. However, there was still a scar on his lower abdomen, constantly reminding him of the humiliation he had suffered that day. As he walked, Jiang Yuqing gradually felt that something was wrong. It was as if a pair of eyes were watching him in the dark. Jiang Yuqing stopped in his tracks and looked back. However, he didn't see anyone. As for that faintly discernible line of sight, it also disappeared. Jiang Yuqing knitted his brows, turned around, and continued walking forward. He focused his mind, but the feeling of being watched didn't appear again. Could it really be his imagination? After some time, Jiang Yuqing suddenly realized that he had unknowingly arrived at Xenli Garden. Thinking of the stolen zither, Jiang Yuqing hesitated for a moment, but still walked in. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 8:26. As he walked in, The people in Xenli Garden bowed respectfully when they saw Jiang Yuqing. Jiang Yuqing didn't pay much attention to them and went straight to Thousand View Garden. When the guards saw him, they said in unison, "Greetings, eldest young master." After the zither was stolen, Jiang Yuqing transferred a lot of people here to guard it strictly. Therefore, the place was now heavily guarded in all directions, both in the open and in the dark. However, Jiang Yuqing hadn't come here since the day the zither was stolen. He stood by the lake and glanced at the zither room. "Have there been any abnormalities recently?" The guard said, in response to eldest young master, "There hasn't been any abnormalities." Jiang Yuqing waved his hand and dismissed them. He walked towards the zither room. In fact, he had guessed the situation. The most important thing in the zither room was the zither. Since the other party had stolen it, there was a high chance that they wouldn't come again. But who would be interested in this ancient zither? Although it was precious, it was just a zither. Moreover, the zither's appearance was very special. It was in the shape of a phoenix's tail, so it was also called the phoenix tail zither. Almost everyone in the Tianling dynasty knew that it was the princess's favorite zither. So, from this point of view, it was absolutely impossible for that person to sell the zither. They didn't even dare to take it out for others to see. Was it really just to take the zither for themselves? Jiang Yuqing couldn't figure it out. And no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't think of any characteristics of that person at that time. He once suspected that it was Mu Hongyu, but the aura seemed a little different. Dragon Teeth Mountain. Jian Fengqi was leisurely today, so he planned to go down the mountain. As soon as he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw an ordinary-looking young man talking to the guard at the door. Jian Fengqi didn't pay much attention at first. Just as he was about to walk over, he vaguely heard Mu Hongyu's name. He stopped in his tracks and looked over. "What's going on?" When the guard saw him, he hurriedly bowed respectfully and said, "Young master, this person is here to deliver a letter." He said that it was a letter from Mu Hongyu's family. We told him that Mu Hongyu was not on the mountain now, so he could keep the letter and pass it to her in the future. But he wouldn't, and that's why. Jian Fengqi looked at the man who delivered the letter. "What's your name?" Jian Fengqi asked while sizing him up calmly. This person looked very ordinary. If his face was placed in a crowd, he would be forgotten in the blink of an eye. However, this person's eyes were clear and resolute. He didn't seem like an ordinary person. Most importantly, this person gave him a vague sense of familiarity. It was as if he had seen it somewhere before. "I'm Qin Chi. I've delivered a letter for Miss Mu Hongyu before." However, at that time, the person he met was Miss Chu Luiyue. Qi Han did not expect to meet Jian Fengqi at this moment. They had interacted with Jian Fengqi many times before. If not for the fact that his aura had been changed by Little Hachi's elixir, Jian Fengqi would have recognized him. Although this was what he thought, Qi Han's expression was still very calm. When Jian Fengqi heard this, he immediately believed him. He remembered clearly that the letter from Mu Hongyu's parents was indeed delivered by Chu Luiyue. Qin Chi must be one of the people in Xiling City who specialized in delivering messages to and from Heaven's Canopy. "I'm Jian Fengqi. Hongyu is indeed not back yet. I'll personally take care of her letter and pass it to her in the future. How about that?" Jian Fengqi's lips curled into a smile. "It's normal for you to be worried about others. However, you should know that I was the one who redeemed Hongyu back then, right? It's only right for me to pass her things to her." Everyone in Xiling City knew that Jian Fengqi had once spent 6 million white crystal coins to buy Mu Hongyu, who had the faint yuan body. According to the laws of the Tianling dynasty, Mu Hongyu was Jian Fengqi's slave, and everything that belonged to her naturally belonged to Jian Fengqi. No one was more qualified to hold this letter than Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi did not like to talk about this normally, and he had never regarded himself as the owner. In fact, everyone on Dragon Teeth Mountain treated Mu Hongyu as an equal and did not look down on her because of her status. But at this point, Jian Fengqi was very clear that if he wanted to get this letter, using this excuse would be the most effective. As expected, the man opposite him hesitated for a moment, then took out a letter and passed it over. "Then please take good care of it, young Master Jian." When you see her in the future, you must pass it to her immediately. Jian Fengqi stretched out his hand, and his slender fingers gently pinched the letter before he took it over with a light smile. He chuckled and said, "Of course." Qi Han hesitated for a moment and said, "Also, if you see Miss Chu Lue, please pass this letter to her." Jian Fengqi was stunned. "Why is that?" Qi Han paused. "Because Miss Chu Lue's family has sent us letters on time, but there hasn't been any news recently. I don't know if something has happened. Miss Mu Hongyu is an old acquaintance of hers. Perhaps she will mention it in the letter." Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. "I didn't expect you to be so concerned about Lu Yu's affairs. Miss Lu Yu is our regular customer, and she is very generous. Naturally, we will pay more attention to her." Qi Han's expression did not change as he explained. Jian Fengqi did not comment. In this line of work, as long as they were paid more, they would be more efficient. It was normal for Chu Lue to be generous to them. After all, she had been in Xiling for a few months and had not returned to Yaochen. This was the only way to contact her family. "The letter has been delivered. If there's nothing else, I will take my leave first." With that, Qi Han simply turned and left. He did not want to say so much at first, but Her Highness had not returned ever since she went to Dahuang Swamp. He could not contact her no matter what, and all kinds of rumors were rampant in Xiling City. He could not help but be worried. Jian Fengqi looked down and saw that the letter was indeed addressed to Mu Hongyu. He recognized the handwriting. It was exactly the same as the previous letter. It was confirmed that it was a letter from Mu Hongyu. However, he felt that there was something wrong with that Qinqi. Jian Fengqi put away the letter and looked up. Looking at Qinqi's back, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Suddenly, a white light flashed across his mind. "Wait!" Qi Han stood still and looked back. "Is there anything else, young Master Jian?" Jian Fengqi caught up with him and stood still in front of Qinqi. "You." Jian Fengqi's throat tightened as he stared at the young man in front of him. This face was unfamiliar. This voice was also unfamiliar. But this gaze, Qi Han seemed to sense something and slowly clenched his fists in his sleeves. Jian Fengqi said word by word, "Have we met before?" Digression. The system seems to be cramping again. There is a synchronization problem. Everyone, please wait for a while. We will continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.